Welcome, everybody, to the Average Intelligence Podcast. If you only watch this one, there's a new face in front of you. Say hello, Justin.
Hello. Hello, Justin.
I was waiting for it. Justin is a dear friend, but also a member of the Arte Podcast Pantheon. But more importantly for this episode, he is both Canadian and I say this in the non insulting way. I'm not going to call you a full blown liberal, but maybe. Would you consider yourself a liberal or just more left leaning than the average Canadian?
More left-leaning. I'm definitely not liberal because liberals can be obnoxious. Like if you
And
get people who are really really on the left. I hate the term radical left, but like you would describe them as radical left. They drive me crazy. But like,
I was about to say he's not a radical. He's not a member of the
yeah,
radical left.
I'm willing to hear you out. And I appreciate that you're willing to hear me out.
Well, yeah, and I will admit that makes me odd in the
Yeah, yeah.
political American.
we Me and Jordan have a mutual for him or a friend, me a coworker that I used to work with, that he was very much like yourself, where we differed in opinion, but we were very much willing to hear each other out. And I think that's like when it comes to politics, in my opinion, the way forward. You have to be able to hear other people out, and you have to be able to disagree civilly with people. I think anyway, that I don't know. Someone might call that naive in today's political landscape, but
I wouldn't call it naive. I would call it necessary because we've seen what happens when, and it really, it's jokingly called Trump derangement syndrome, but I mean, it's a real thing. And it's
Mhm.
not Donald Trump's fault. I personally I blame it on the news media because Trump derangement syndrome, at least in the United States, is a thing. Although I know a few other people who hail originally from Canada, but they live here now, and they got it hard. Like they got it
Yeah.
harder. They got it harder than COVID. And I'll be frank, I don't really understand it because to me, if you understand the Constitution of the United States and how our government works, you understand that the president is not the end all be all. In fact, there's a number of checks and balances that are put in his or her way. Now, I also believe, and I think it's it's demonstrable that the president does have far too much power than the
Mhm.
office should hold. But that's regardless of the president's political party. So to blame all of this on Trump is it's kind of like when the Supreme Court recently ruled and on the whole presidential immunity thing, and everybody was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, well, that means that the president can just order somebody to be assassinated." I'm like, no. Like, first of all, time. Let's pause here. First of all, when that happened, I'm like, first of all, by that logic, Joe Biden should have, and I'm not suggesting he should do this, even if that were the case, but Joe Biden could have legally like killed Donald Trump if that were the
I
case. So
mean,
so right there,
some people think he did, maybe.
well, but here's the thing: he could have blatantly done it. You know what I mean? He
I
doesn't,
mean, yeah, he could have trotted Donald Trump off in handcuffs and made him disappear, and like been like, see, it's on the presidential parchment. It
or
has
more,
the seal. It's official.
yeah,
It counts.
or more importantly, he could have just had him locked up
I
because
mean, yeah, yeah, absolutely,
he
yeah.
can do anything because it's legal. So, and it's like even the media didn't read the decision because if you did, you would understand that they didn't really do a whole lot with that decision
Mhm.
because it still falls upon a lower court when there's a case where it's not obvious, like the president can't just go out committing. It's not the purge, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the president
I
doesn't have a
mean,
get out of jail free card.
as an aside, the purge kind of benefited from the Trump presidency because man, they sure made they used a lot of his iconography for a lot of their marketing. I'm just saying. Like they were using him all the way through those movies. It was kind of, yeah, one of them straight up I think had a MAGA hat in one of the posters. I thought it was funny.
Or at least inspired by, yeah, and that's what I'm talking about though. So Trump derangement syndrome isn't the only thing. Like Donald Trump had an effect, and I this goes back on a number of episodes. I don't blame him for all of it. There were definitely things that he
Mhm.
did that didn't help, but I always made the case that Donald Trump was never really given a fair shake from before he was president. So
Mhm.
you can't really pin it all on him, in my opinion. But believe it or not, we're not really here to talk about Donald Trump per se. We're here to talk about the news that broke earlier today, which came, I'll be honest, it came sooner than I expected, but I did kind of see it coming. And I would just like to point out that I'm not even going to say I was right because I had options, but I did say that the only way Joe Biden is going to drop out of this race is if he dies or there is a backroom meeting where he is basically told. But here's the funny part that even I
Or
didn't anticipate.
both.
Well, I mean, yeah, but here's the part that even I didn't anticipate. They had the backroom meeting and then told the entire world that they had the backroom meeting.
That
Like,
was surprising. Yeah, and all the people who showed up to the backroom meeting. That
I
was
was like,
surprising.
this is literally a backroom meeting. Like, if this wasn't the U.S. government, if this was a mafia family, you'd be like, oh yeah, they told him to get out.
So
You know?
okay, so here's my question though. Do you think this was the plan the whole time? Do you think the plan the whole time was to swap out Kamala? Or this
No.
is like, oh, you saw the debates. I think I described it to my friends as the political equivalent of like jogging around him in the ring and kind of doing one of those things repeatedly in the face. And Joe Biden just wasn't defending it, but was like rocking it and just kind of like taking it.
It's
Like
like
that's what that debate was.
there should have been a referee stoppage.
Yeah, like, oh my God, he's killing him. Dear God, why? Stop.
Somebody make it stop. A lot of people actually had that sentiment because even I was like, this is just wrong. But
Yeah.
what's interesting, no, so I don't think this was the whole plan, and I can kind of quasi prove it to you because going into prior to that debate, and I mean minutes prior, up to the minute before that debate started, the entire Democratic Party and really the entire like mainstream media in the United States and throughout a lot of the world, barring some more right-leaning media sources in like the U.S. and Australia, really. And then I don't know, are there any really like right-wing journalistic entities in Canada that are taken
Yeah.
seriously? Okay.
Oh, taking well, okay.
I mean,
That's a loaded question.
I'm sure they exist,
Um,
but like, okay, are there
like taken
any?
seriously, yes, but not taken seriously by me. Like in the way that like we do, it's called Rebel News, but like I don't take them
Oh,
seriously
Rebel
because they
News is
generally
Canadian.
don't. Yeah, Rebel News is Canadian.
I did
Yeah.
not know that. I've heard of them.
Yeah.
I don't really. I don't frequent them, but I've heard of them.
Like much in the way as you would put it, left leaning person, I don't necessarily take everything at the Daily Wire seriously. Um, same deal with Rebel News. I
So
don't
yeah,
take necessarily. I take what they say with a grain of salt. Like anything, there's I'm sure an element of truth to it, but we live in outrage culture now, so like you take it with like a hair. You're like, there's probably a level of sensationalism to it.
yeah. Which, by the way, I forgot to mention. This podcast is brought to you today by both One Weekend at Horrorland, the horror and Goosebumps convention being put on by RT Media for Sandcorp and the Goosebumps crew. We'll talk more about them later. And obviously, because he is our guest here and his incomparable co-host, I see is in the comments. I will address your comment shortly over there, Justin. The Spur of the Moment podcast.
Yes, excellent. Yes. I'm excited to be here. Actually, it's funny when I walked in today. Jordan was like, he's like, I have something to say to you. Like Biden stepped down. He's like, and they just lost the election, right? And I'm like, it's funny you should say that because I'm about to
That's
go on the
okay.
Evan Intelligence
Spoiler
podcast.
alert. I'm basically going to spend this episode both conversing and answering Justin's questions and explaining how the Democrats are going to lose the election.
And see, here's the thing. Jordan said that, and I think they have a chance if they go at the. Here's the thing. I think
they
they're going
have
to lose,
one.
but
They
I
have
always thought they were going to lose,
they
and I
have
stand by
one.
that.
They do have one chance, but it's like a one in
They
a
have
million shot. But it's their best shot.
they have one chance, and I don't foresee them going for it because then it would okay. I'll just give it up right now. If they go for Donald Trump's age and his senility, and they point out like all of how he has his funny gaffes and his funny goofs, if they go for those and they make him like they paint him as like senile and feeble, and they go for him in the way that like they went for Biden,
But it won't work.
maybe if she goes, I'm young, I won't die in 2 years. You may not like me, but at least I'll live. If they go in that direction, they may stand a chance. They won't because then it would involve them having to admit that Biden was too
Oh
old,
no,
which I
see,
don't
here's
think
the
they
thing.
will.
Here's the thing though. The At least in America, the Democratic Party and the left in general in America are literally that stupid. And it's not so much stupid but hubristic. Because here's why, like literally, and I can point these out. Everything they have accused Donald Trump of doing, they have done themselves in the past 4 years. And I can point to every single one of them. Like and the thing is, like, it's the things that they have accused Trump of doing, they have actually done at least once as a party. Someone in the party
Yeah.
has done it. And then the other thing too is they honestly believe their shit doesn't stink because they said with a straight face not that long ago, they were pointing, well, Trump's old too, and they tried to pass off a video of him allegedly sleeping. No, it was him bowing his head during a prayer, and they tried to pass it off as him sleeping. And it's like you said, logically, they would have to admit that Biden was also senile and old, but they won't do
Yeah.
that. They literally believe, and this is their problem. This is the root of their problem. The Democratic Party of today literally believes that the American people are so stupid that YouTube, cell phones, and videos do not exist. And they've done this since 2016. Like this
Yeah.
is the same reason Hillary lost, or part of the reason Hillary lost, because the reason Hillary lost is literally they found the one person on planet Earth that at the time was hated more than Donald Trump. And
Well,
they
yeah, she
said,
was just
this is a
really
good,
unlikable.
and
Yeah.
they said, this is a great idea. But Hillary Clinton was so, and this is stupid because again, it's like they forget that cell phones are a thing and that they almost all of them record video now. Um, she would literally go to one place. She'd be in California and talk about how she's going to kill the fossil fuel industry. She's going to kill coal, and then go to Pennsylvania and be like, "We're going to save your jobs." Bitch, on Tuesday you just said you were going to eradicate the industry that everyone here works in.
Wasn't her big thing that she didn't bother to go to Middle America? Like
That's
that was her whole
another
thing.
that's another thing. But I mean, and that's largely why, that's one of the big reasons. There are multiple reasons, obviously, why Trump won in 2016. The Democrats, by the way, many of them still say that he cheated, and then say, "Well, elections are secure," when Trump alleged that there was cheating going on in 2020. So it's the shoe on the other foot thing again.
Yeah, yeah.
See, I disagree. Sorry, your incomparable host Jordan said there's also the fact that I still don't believe that America is ready to vote in a woman president. I disagree. I think the problem is that the women that have been put up thus far have been very, very poor choices. Because, like Hillary Clinton, poor choice. I think if Condoleezza Rice had run at some point, probably not so much anymore because she's not as known, but like if Condoleezza Rice had been on the Republican ticket in 2016, I think she would have done fairly well. If Donald Trump hadn't been there, I think she definitely had a shot. I think if Tulsi Gabbard ran as a Republican, I think she would do very well.
I mean, there's
Obviously,
people who maintain that Michelle Obama
and
uh
and,
that
and
she would crush it, but I mean, I don't know.
she'd be a good choice for the Democrat because she's one of the people I was going to talk about. Um, but screw it, I'll start the process now. So Biden is out. Who are the Democrats going to pick? And I have some ideas as to who they'll pick, not because they're good choices, and
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't
I
think
just
any of
full
them
bore
will
expected
help
you to
them.
go just full steam into Kamala. So that's so interesting.
Oh
Sorry, that
no,
story to interrupt. That's
well,
interesting that you're like they
and
you
here's
think they have options.
here's what. Oh, they definitely have options. This is about to turn into the greatest shit show. As someone who really just doesn't like the Democratic Party as an entity, I'm getting ready to do this with a
Interesting.
with a
Because
bowl of
like I'm
popcorn.
like, are they gonna do an emergency like a last minute primary? Like, were they
Well,
not expecting this? Like, to
that's
me, because okay,
no,
I like
no,
just I
they
want to go
weren't.
back to the so
They
truly that line about being the transitionary president was bullshit. That was bullshit, but then they did it anyway. That's why that logically that doesn't make any sense.
well, no,
It's
here's
not
the thing. They
logicking to me.
The thing is they weren't expecting it for two reasons. One, that the left that well, I'm going to stop saying the left unless I mean it. So the Democratic Party literally thinks their farts don't stink. And
Yeah.
they are the person that's in the room. It's like I don't smell anything.
Like
It's
my it's just like my thing is like as much as I don't like Donald Trump, I get why they're like all chips in on him. I just with Biden, I don't get it. Like that's my thing.
Well,
Like
that's just it. They should have, honestly, even if he wasn't having the senility problems. They should have dumped him after his first term, because his first term was a pile of dog shit. I mean, it truly was. And again, I can point to examples. This was not a good presidency in any stretch of the imagination. Like, it was not good. Biden may go down as one of the worst presidents in United States history, and I'm not being hyperbolic. There was,
I mean, that's fair for me and Jordan. We were always just like with Donald Trump, we just wish he did it quieter. You know, you like everything he did like loudly. Like he just smashed everything as loudly as he possibly could. And you were like, just 1 week of quiet, man. Like
well,
1 week
let's,
where you don't have to hear about what he said. And with Biden, that's kind of it's been like 4 years of peace and quiet for the most part.
until he
For the
falls.
most
Well,
part,
yes and no, because maybe as far as his Twitter account, but as far as the world stage is concerned, it's been extremely loud, and it's very little of it has to do with what he's done directly, although I can point to a handful of things. Most of it is just he doesn't he 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 presents an aura of weakness in the United States, which is why, I mean, let's, compare notes. And I've always said it's not always fair to blame the current president for something that happens in their administration, because sometimes it's not their fault. It's the fault of seeds
yeah,
planted ages ago. With Biden, however, there's plenty that can be pointed to. Like, a lot of people say, well, you can't blame Biden for the withdrawal of Afghanistan because Trump started that. Yes, except the Taliban had already violated the terms of that agreement. And if Trump had still been president, I'd wager to say that even if he was still going with the pullout, the minute the Taliban started pulling the shit about taking over U.S. bases, certainly by the time U.S. soldiers were killed, he would have been like, nope, fuck it, waste them. Waste every
yeah.
single one of those motherfuckers.
Yeah. With that in mind, I like to be fair. I like, oh, I mean, I hate people. I've been getting such shit lately for being a centrist, but I like to be fair-minded. And when people are like, "Oh, Trump's economy tanked," I'm like, well, to be fair to
No,
Trump, yeah, COVID, like everyone took a major hit on COVID economy. So like, and that's why when Biden's like, "Oh, I gained all these jobs," I'm like, well, that's kind of bullshit because you gained all the jobs that Trump lost from COVID. So it's like to me, they kind of even out. So I'm like, neither really is really a brag. Like we took a hit on a global pandemic, and then like we suffered on both ends, and we gained on both ends. Like to me, it's not like yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it does.
like
And
I
it's, I've been saying it for years. So I would like
so
to
it's just
point
like,
out,
yeah, it's not fair to blame Trump for the job losses only to praise Biden for the gains. I think that's yeah, it
yeah,
doesn't logic to
you
me.
don't get credit for bounce back jobs. In fact, you could criticize Biden for it taking longer than it should have because of the increased which again, I don't blame Biden for the lockdowns directly because there was never like a federal lockdown. However, the president does have influence over how certain states will, you know, do laws and whatnot.
Yeah.
But that being said, certainly, like, even now, I saw an article where I'm not even joking. The new COVID strain, the code spells out farce.
Really?
I'm
That's
not joking.
is that a that has to be there's okay. You're probably gonna argue that that's intentional, but that has to be just a weird coincidence, right? There's no way that's intentional.
No, that is some smart ass sitting at the CDC just being like,
That because that's funny. I mean, as a comedian, that's funny. But like that's so bad. Like, I mean, to be fair, I got this. I mean, I get this real obnoxious left-leaning people that pop up on my For You page on TikTok, and there's lots of people who are like, "COVID's still a thing," and it's like,
it's
I
really
get it.
not.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I get it.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry,
understand.
not farce, it's fluke. FLUQE.
I mean, that's still funny. That's still funny.
Oh, is there one? Extreme Nathan says there's a new one also called Flirt.
That's also funny. I
Oh
stopped
man.
paying attention.
Oh, and then I
I'm
saw
gonna be
head.
honest. I stopped. I kind of went hands off. Fuck it with COVID. I'm not like one of them anti-vax people.
See,
But like,
I'm not either, and I fucking hate them for this. I hated them for making me in any way, shape, or form sound like I'm anti-vaccination because I am not. I think that anti-vaxxers, not COVID anti-vaxxers, I mean anti-vaxxers in
yeah.
general, are
Oh
nut
yeah, like
jobs.
the bad ones. I know
Yeah,
what you mean. Yeah.
like
I'm kind of
vaccines are fucking
connected to
great.
those. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
vaccines are fucking wonderful. And I'm sorry, I just saw a headline come across, and it's funny because I suggested this. I feel so smart this year because a lot of the things that I've suggested or predicted are coming true, and I'm not sure if I'm happy about that. But Trump wants GOP reimbursed, quote, for fraud after Biden exit, wants next debate to be on Fox. It ain't gonna happen. I'd be shocked if it happens.
I mean, I don't know.
Well,
Hey, look, fair's fair. First one was on
oh,
CNN.
well, but that okay. So here's the thing about the CNN debate. That wasn't an official debate, but nobody says Fox can't just host their own debate, whether or
Yeah,
not.
exactly.
And see, here's the thing: the Democratic nominee kind of has to show up because otherwise, it just gives Trump 90 minutes to be like, "I told them that there was going to be a debate. They didn't have the balls to come here and debate me, so I'm just going to spend 90
Uh,
minutes bitching about China
I
and the
look, yeah,
Democrats."
I already said what Biden or what Kamala Harris is, if she is indeed the nominees. Um, like what I think any okay, if we're gonna go through who the backup options are gonna be, I there's gonna be a theme with me. But with Trump, every one, I'm gonna be if I'm him, I'm gonna be how does it feel to be second place?
I mean,
How does it feel to
basically,
be second choice?
and
Like that's gonna be it.
that's why they're beaten. They literally cannot win except for their Hail Mary, which I will save for last. I'll make you watch, bitches. Anyway, so let's look at because literally all he has to say is like, "Well, you were their second choice. Their first choice had to drop out because he was old, senile, and a terrible president.
And then what frustrates me is they should have if they had just I heard someone say this
They should
already,
have
but
had a primary. That's what they
yeah,
should
had a
have done.
primary. They should have
Because
had a
here's because
primary.
here's the thing. I don't and that's what they should do, honestly. I don't know if they will, even though and this is the irony. So let's assume that the Democrats don't just have a primary because realistically, I don't know that they have enough time. But let's say that they don't have a primary and they just select somebody. They have accused Trump since day one of killing democracy, and they are about to do the most undemocratic thing that they
Yeah,
could possibly do.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what I'm
absolutely,
talking
yeah.
about. But when they do it, it's okay because they have an excuse. Trump has never done anything, and I mean this when I say this, I'm not hyperbolic. Trump. Trump has not done anything successfully, or he hasn't attempted anything as far as I'm concerned. And before you throw out January 6th, I have a rebuttal. But Trump has not done anything to openly like usurp the Democratic. Well, no, okay, I almost said something stupid. Trump has never done anything to usurp democracy as an institution. He has done something to try to usurp the democratic process, allegedly.
Yeah.
I mean, I say
Here's
allegedly just because it hasn't been proven in court, but I mean, he fucking did it. But now,
here's
granted,
what I will say. Sorry, here's what I will say about Biden. And like Biden is either a senile old man or he is like the mastermind of the greatest criminal conspiracy of all time. He cannot be both. And I always said the same thing about
I
Donald
said that
Trump.
about Trump.
He either is a massive idiot or he's a maniacal mob boss style genius. He cannot be both. And I tend to believe like he just really likes to hear things he likes to hear. Like he's just that I truly don't believe he is as nefarious as people paint him out to be. I truly don't think he's that I don't want to say that smart, but I just don't think he thinks about that kind of stuff, or I don't think he thinks that way. I think he's surrounded by people who want to like dote power onto him or want him to be that. I don't
Hmm.
think he wants to be that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. But so I think Biden was not both simultaneously, but one became the other because I am a full believer in the Biden family influence peddling scheme. I've seen and read a lot of evidence. In fact, I often cite an article that I read in 2014 when I had read on page 6 of USA Today that Hunter Biden was put on the board of Burisma. And I was like, that's interesting because Russia had just invaded the Crimea and the vice president's son goes and gets put on the board of the largest natural gas company in Ukraine. That's with no background whatsoever. It'd be one thing if he had a background in energy, but he doesn't.
Fair enough.
And I was just like, that's interesting. And then all the laptop stuff came out, and I was like, holy shit! Like, of course he was. Like, there's no other explanation. Like they absolutely were, and their defense, like he's admitted to having his dad on the phone during business meetings. What the fuck are they doing? Talking about the weather? Oh yeah, how's the weather there? It's sunny.
See,
Oh yeah, yeah.
I always maintain that like Donald Trump, it's not that his family or him and his family, like I don't think they've done, how to put this, I don't think they've done stuff that's any worse than what any politician has ever done, with the
Probably
implication that
not.
like all politicians are bad. Like there's my favorite podcast, sorry, not one of the ones that, anyway, well, the thing they've said that they believe that after every president finishes their presidency, they should just automatically go to jail. And then the next person, they should ask, are you going to do the same thing the last guy did? And if the answer is anything other than no, then they also go to jail. Like that's the condition of being president. And I'm like, that's a fair rule. That feels like a fair and just rule. And I'm totally for it.
Oh gosh.
But I just my belief with Trump is he just is not great at hiding. Like he says the quiet part out loud. And if he
Well,
said the
and
quiet part quiet, he would get away with stuff more.
well,
Like
but
at
if he
least
said
that's my
honestly, that's why I feel safe under a Trump administration, because he does say the quiet part out loud. I'm much
yeah.
more comfortable. And I've heard a lot of people, and Jordan kind of touched on this, but I've made this point before. Donald Trump does come off as a bit, for lack of a better word, he comes across as crazy enough to push the button. But the thing is, that is not inherently a bad thing, because when you have somebody, if you're just not sure exactly what they're going to do, like, Biden's not going to push the button. You just
Yeah.
know it, because Biden comes off as a weak puss. Like, there's no other way to say it. But if motherfucker's just crazy enough, he might push the button. You're not going to cross him.
Yeah. Also, there's also five guys who are watching him to make sure he won't push the button as well.
Yeah, but again, do you want to take that chance?
I mean, I don't
That's
like anyone have. I'm in the camp of I don't like anyone having a button. So
I agree, but if a button exists, I want the
yeah,
button on my
yeah,
side.
I don't know. I would like the button on my side. I prefer. I don't. Yeah, I don't know.
I
I don't
prefer
know.
I prefer no button, but this is the reason.
I'm at camp. I don't like any of the options.
But this is why I'm very pro Second Amendment. Other than the fact that it's in the Constitution and written into law, is the fact that I would much prefer that guns just didn't exist. But
See,
if they
as a
exist,
Canadian, we culturally are confused by the Second Amendment. It's baked into our culture. We're like, we don't get it, eh? It's like there's a joke for it in like everything where a Canadian shows up. We don't understand guns. It's a whole thing.
that's a whole nother podcast. But I guess my logic is, if they exist, I want one.
Yeah, I mean, fair. Hey, fair enough. I'm the kind of person where go wild. Don't hurt yourself for anyone else, please. Like as long as you're responsible with it, I'm cool, man.
Well, and that's
I
the
like the guys
thing.
who aren't so responsible with it.
Well, and that's the thing, though. That's the dirty little secret that the Democrats don't ever talk about, but the Republicans and people, just second Second Amendment people in general, always really hammer home, is that Second Amendment advocates, I mean, for the vast majority, sure, there's an asshole here, there's an asshole everywhere, but the vast majority of like pro-gun Second Amendment people understand that responsibility and the gun go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And
If we have our own gun, like
yeah,
for us, like my dad always said, like they interview like your ex-wife to make sure that it's cool that you're not gonna
and
whatever.
see, and
And
see,
like
that's
that was the level of check
yeah.
that he was cool with.
Now, where I do disagree with some gun advocates, because some also agree with me, I think it's a hard line to toe, because you have to have safety checks and balances without infringing upon rights. But like, for example, one of the stipulations of the law is, if you were a felon, you cannot legally own a firearm, like point blank. That's it.
Yeah.
Now obviously people get around that, and there are loopholes that could be closed. very easily, and I don't understand why they don't do that. But I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to, like, you can't do a psych evaluation on everyone. Believe me, that would be awesome, but you just can't. It's not feasible.
No,
But
and I mean, there's always going to be the people who, look, truthfully, all you can do is like make it as hard as you possibly can. That's like with in your case, without it doesn't overstep. We don't have a right to bear arms here, so I don't
right.
really have a rep. But you want to get it as close as you can without infringing that right.
Yeah. Well, and you don't want to make it too hard though, because the vast majority of gun violence, believe it or not, now they don't talk about this because the vast majority of gun violence done in the United States is gang violence, but they don't talk about
Yeah.
that. But the vast majority of gun violence, if you include gang violence, is done with illegally procured firearms in the first place.
Mhm.
So that's a whole thing. Like every time there's a shooting in the United States, they freak out, but there are shootings multiple times a day in places like Chicago. So, and
Yeah. Oh
they don't
yeah.
care about that because that's, frankly, that's black men killing black men. Like if we're being
Yeah.
honest, they don't give a fuck about that. And it doesn't fit their narrative. That's probably the main reason. Oh, say, see, I'm Canadian. I don't understand this. Everybody should have the right to have a gun. Like, no, not every single person has the right. Well, okay, so technically not everyone has the right because, like I said, if you were a felon, you don't you can't legally own a firearm, stuff like that. The logic of the Second Amendment comes from really just back to the Revolution because the American Revolution was fought pretty much exclusively by common people. The United States didn't have a military until that time, and even then, I mean, it was official, but it was kind of unofficial, because we were rebelling against the crown, eh? But
Yeah.
and
We were kind of the crown, eh?
you were at the time.
Yeah,
Canada,
kind of.
Canada,
Yeah.
Canada was very much part of the crown at the time.
We still
Technically,
kind of
even
are. Yeah.
I mean, in a way, you're much more independent. But even the War of 1812, you were technically part of the crown. Which the War
That
of
is true.
1812 in the United States is just hilarious because we're actually taught, at least at a young age, that we won the War of 1812, and
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't lose per se, but we also didn't win. It was kind of like we agreed to stop fighting and not get anything out of it.
Is that the one where is that the one where we burned down the White House? Was on the War
Yes,
of 1812? Was that? Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But yeah,
I was like, I know that one. I just can't remember why.
I'm sure that if you look at newspapers at the time, they were all like America kicks Britain out of the United States for a second time, and it's like, no, they kind of just agreed to go because I mean they pretty well had it. Like they
Yeah,
burned down the White House.
we've done this. What do we need to do? We need to do it more. I don't think we do.
Well, and
We
that's
don't
the
need to
other
do this
thing is
more.
the US likes to pretend that we didn't just flat out start the War of 1812, which spoiler alert, we did because
I mean, that makes sense.
We felt like Canada needed some democracy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When we have our own form of it. It's just different.
I know, but at the
It,
time it was still part of the Commonwealth of the Crown, so
I mean, technically speaking, our government works very similarly to the British one. It's a similar, yeah, it's a similar
well, yeah,
style
yeah,
of
yeah.
government.
It's a I mean, there most Western nations' governmental system is essentially a clone of, the English parliamentary system. Now, some tweaks, because the United States
Yeah.
tweaked it a bit, but it's essentially the same thing. You have two houses of Congress or Parliament with an executive branch with a figurehead. Now, some countries have two actually. Some countries have a president and a prime minister. I don't know how the fuck that works, but
Oh, interesting. I didn't know
yeah, it's a
that.
thing. It's a thing. I can't think of one right now, but I know they're out there.
Huh.
Um,
The one that blew my mind was I like totally didn't even like connect that Japan was still a monarchy. It's like, oh yeah, shit, they're still a
eh,
monarchy.
technically, it's kind of like a monarchy in the sense that the UK is a monarchy.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
know, but it was like
it's
when it was because I watched Japanese television. It's like it's a new era. I was like, oh,
oh
what? Where's
yeah,
that?
and
Oh shit, yeah.
didn't the princess I read something, I say recently within the last few years, like the princess got stripped of her royal title because she married a commoner in Japan.
I don't actually know. All I know is I because I watched Kamen Rider and Super Sentai, it went from being the Heisei era to
Yeah,
the Reiwa era. And
well,
I
so
and so
same for
yeah, that's the only
Godzilla.
reason why, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, same with Godzilla. Yeah, yeah,
fun fact, the Godzilla eras are named after the emperor, whoever is emperor at the time.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
in case you
So
didn't know,
OG Godzilla is the Showa era.
because it was Emperor Showa.
Yeah, and I didn't know that. I'd seen the Heisei and the Showa, but I didn't know like where that
You
phrasing
know
like
what?
where that came from.
I bet that's actually fairly common with long-running Japanese film and television series.
I'm sure it probably is. Yeah,
Because
I
I
just
had only
yeah
heard that with Godzilla, but you just mentioned it was for Kamen Rider, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's a thing now.
yeah. Well, with Kamen Rider and it's more Kamen Rider when it hits those eras, the aesthetic kind of modernizes a bit more because like Kamen Rider starts off like they're all bugs for some reason, they're all grasshoppers, and then yeah, by like the Heisei era, they're just kind of doing whatever's fun. One of them is switches. The one I made Jordan watch involves switches in space.
Yeah, you're not wrong, Jordan, but again, I think I would point to, and again, the reason I have this viewpoint, this is the last bit about guns, and then we'll get into the replacements for Biden, is because it's codified in the Constitution. And again, they could change it. It would just require a constitutional amendment, which is it's designed to be very hard to do, but it
It's
is
very
possible.
hard, yeah.
I mean, you pretty much have to have the vast majority of the country behind it, which is the idea.
Yeah,
With the
you'd have
exception
to, both
with
sides would have to agree on it, and then, which they never would, essentially.
well, no, I mean so the first 10 amendments were basically ratified with the Constitution, but all the subsequent ones they actually were uh, voted in, like it was voted and ratified, and
Oh,
so I mean it's possible. It's just it's designed to be difficult, which that's one thing that irks me about people commenting on the United States government. It is designed to be difficult to do anything
yeah.
because they don't want people to just be able to go in and change everything with the stroke of a pen. It's
Well,
designed to
yeah.
have it's designed to be difficult. It was
They,
actually
they, well, to my understanding, the founding fathers designed it to be kind of with the strictest intention of people not being able to vote or do it emotionally, like to not go for people to prevent it from just kind of becoming a popularity contest.
that's what it was designed for.
Yeah, to prevent it
But
from being like, oh, I just don't like this guy. They were
well,
like, yeah,
yeah,
it should be hard.
yeah. Well, and it was even designed without. It was designed to not have political parties, not necessarily be impossible, but it was designed in such a way that political parties shouldn't have become dominant, as we've seen immediately afterward it happened.
Yeah,
But because that's why you have the two houses of Congress and two senators per state, and then representatives based on the population of said state and or territory. But obviously, political parties have because it makes sense, but it's kind of regrettable. But anyway, speaking of political parties, has it not become? Yeah, I mean, an election anymore is is a fucking popularity contest. So in a
yeah.
way,
It shouldn't be. I mean, that's what I mean. Not to tie into our here to talk that your politics, but that's kind of why I like our politics. It drives me crazy when people are like, I'm not voting for Justin Trudeau. Technically speaking, you can't actually vote for Justin Trudeau. Like you know how like when you vote, you can actually vote for Donald Trump. That's not how
mhm.
our politics work. You vote for a representative, and that represents the party. So like, I can't vote for Justin Trudeau, even if I wanted to. He's not my
Oh,
riding.
well, that
So I
explains how
can't.
that explains how he stayed in office.
Yeah, he has his own riding that he represents, and he's the leader of the Liberal Party. So, like, when people are like, "Oh, he should step down," that would be kind of a meaningless action because then just the next person in line of the Liberal Party would just become prime minister, and the Liberals would still be in power. So it means kind of nothing. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Um.
That makes sense. But speaking of their party, so let's talk about the jackass in the room, Kamala Harris. For those of you who don't know, the symbol of the Democratic Party is a donkey.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so I'm not calling Kamala Harris a jackass. I'm calling her a Democrat. But I mean, same thing.
Although Jordan did say she's severely unlikable. That was his
She
immediate
is,
comment about
and
her.
and that's what kills me. So I've had a lot of people be like, "Well, they're clearly just gonna nominate Kamala," and I'm like, "I don't think
But
so."
my counter to that would be I don't necessarily think she's crazy likable. I think
No,
hard
she's not.
lawyer cop mom is not likable. It's not a likable strategy. But my counter to that would be she's more likable than Hillary.
Well,
I would say she's at least trying. Hillary wasn't even trying. I would say that
until
Kamala is trying to be relatable and human.
I would say until you learn about her, I could see that. But once you learn about her, you just she's thoroughly. Here's the thing about Kamala. Okay, in a general election, I think she would actually perform worse than not Donald Trump. I'm sorry. I think she would perform worse than Joe Biden, and here's why. So Kamala's record as Attorney General of the state of California, um, I mean, she got caught red-handed, keeping people in prison after they were exonerated, or she withheld evidence in cases to basically. Now she didn't come out and say this, but this is what she was accused of. And I mean, why else would you do it? It's either laziness or nefarious. So withholding evidence, keeping people on death row or in prison, basically just to exploit free labor for the state of California, because there's no reason other than laziness, a personal vendetta, or wanting free labor to keep someone in prison when there is evidence out there that would exonerate them and set them free. There's
I mean,
zero
I could
excuse for
definitely
that.
see the argument for free labor. I mean, that's kind of the whole thing with a lot of your prisons, with a lot of your
Well,
prison
and
system is they're kind of,
but I find it
that's a whole
ironic.
nother topic for a
But
whole
but
nother podcast.
but Kamala Harris has been criticizing the U.S. prison system, which I get it. There's a lot to criticize there. But of all people to do that, Kamala Harris is like the least qualified person to complain about the United States prison system.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So okay. So here's my qualifications or I guess questions before I like go, who do I think has the best chance against Trump? Are we operating under the assumption that they're not shoring up the base? Like we're not
No, they
like
probably
we're
are,
just
and that's
trying to
their
get
other
new
mistake.
voters. That's
Well, no, but here's the thing: they probably are going to shore up the base, and that's their mistake. Kamala will shore up the base. She ticks
that
all
will
the
absolutely shut
boxes.
up the base.
She ticks all the boxes. She's a woman. She's a woman of color. She's way more left than Trump. I mean, Jesus, she's way more left than Biden is, and is open about it. Here's the thing, though: she's incompetent. She can't do the job because she hasn't done the job. I don't even, I'm sure she's been to the border by now, but it was ages before she or Biden went to the border. And she's subordinate to the Biden administration, so in the average voter's mind, it would be more of the same because she's part of the administration. Now, if the Biden administration were popular, that would be a good thing. That would be
Mhm.
if Biden was popular, then it would be a good thing to run with her because then you could just run on. It's more the same, like very much how I joked when Biden ran in 2020, I kept calling him "Oh Biden" or Obama 2.0 because that's
Yeah, that's how
essentially,
I said. Yeah,
well, that's what he ran on. But the minute he got in office, he started catering more and more to the radicals in the Democratic Party. Unsuccessfully
because
though, because nothing's ever good enough for the radical progressives because they
because
always want more.
here's my thing. Here's what I said Biden should have done. And I don't feel he did it enough because truly, I don't know if you would agree with this. Trump wasn't popular. He was not a popular president. People didn't like him just by nature of the fact. I feel maybe you would concede this that a lot of people voted for Biden because he wasn't Trump. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's so many people voted him. So I would say that Trump was also unpopular. So I would argue that going into this election, popularity is also not on his side. So I
Oh,
think
I don't know.
if the Democrats pick someone young and charismatic, that's their best game here. Someone who's like, I'm gonna be around and I'm likable. Like they need an Obama 2.0 because
Right.
I think
They need
Obama carried them and they thought they could use that Obama energy.
Okay, so I'll give you the dark horse, and this is honestly, as far as I can tell, this is the Democrats' only hope. They need another Barack Obama, like you said. They need an unknown, young,
Mhm.
charismatic, not necessarily moderate, but somebody that's going to appeal more to the middle of the road
Absolutely.
because they're running against a Republican that, as far as Republicans go, is one of the more popular candidates they've had in the past couple of decades. I
Yeah.
mean, there's no way you can mince it. So if you're going to convince, I'm pretty firm in this point. that you're not going to convince Republicans to not vote for Donald Trump. I don't think that's
No,
going to
but
happen.
I do have a counter to that as well, which I would say that I think I think the Project 2025 hard right people are a weight around Donald Trump's ankles that he needs to ditch because like
See,
I think
that's
more and more you're seeing in Europe, you're seeing that more and more that hard far right shit. Like you're seeing more and more that that's being rejected, and up here in Canada, that shit consistently gets shut down. I think that's making him unpopular, and I think
well,
if
but
he pushes a bit more,
he's already cut it off though because his rally he did, I think it was yesterday. He openly talked about 2025 and he's like, I don't even know what it is, which is true. Because here's the thing about Project 2025, and I imagine you haven't been made aware of this because you're in Canada and it's all the more left-leaning news outlets are talking about. Like I mentioned this when we did our TikTok live, which by the way, we need to get
mhm.
that on the various channels.
I
Is
have it. I have it. I was just gonna straight up just give it to you. I'm like, you do with this what you will.
I'll just chop it in half and we'll do half on here and then half on yours. So make people cross promote. And by the way, you should check out the Spur of the Moment podcast. First link in the description or second link in the description. Sorry, but it's a link there. Um,
It is not. We don't do politics. We don't do this here,
no,
really.
they do more common writer than politics. So if that's your
Yeah,
deal, I it's a good show to watch and very interactive. So kudos to that. But um, Project 2025. So Trump basically on stage, and this is true. Oh, sorry, the story I was going into. So I now watched the whole testimony. I watched Ben Shapiro testify in some congressional thing because he did a burn on somebody and I wanted to see the context of it. And I ended up listening to the whole thing. Um, Not a single Republican brought up 2025 except for Ben Shapiro, who made fun of the Democrats, saying that they must think it's like Beetlejuice, that if you say it three times, Barack Obama appears.
that's okay. Here's what I will say. I will say that there's an element. I'm absolutely sure there is a group of people that Donald Trump surrounds him with that I think inarguably wants to increase the executive power. Whether or not they are successful at it, or whether or not that I think that is at least some of them have that desire to increase executive power.
Sure.
I don't think Donald Trump wants that. I just think he thinks it's a cool toy to have. Like, I don't think he actually has any desire to utilize it if it was given to him. And I don't think he's like nefarious enough to, but I do think there are people who he surrounds himself with who have that desire, who
Sure,
are maybe
absolutely.
a bad influence on him.
Yeah, I for real. And that's kind of I've criticized the Republican Party of this before. It's kind of the irony because the Republican platform is small government and and yet like the power of the executive branch of the federal government in general ballooned under George W. Bush, like massively ballooned. And it's just
Yeah,
like, really? I thought you guys were the power the party of limited government, but it's the short-sightedness of Republicans is they want to expand executive power and then forget that a Democrat could totally be voted in behind them and probably
yeah.
will be. Like,
Yeah, exactly. And probably would be quieter and more discreet about the ways they would abuse it. And yeah, there's never quite enough like a lot of
that's
so
why
like
I consider Donald Trump almost a blessing in disguise because it's like you say, he always says the quiet part out loud. He just
yeah,
says it. But he like during that rally, and again, YouTube's a thing, you can Google this. He pretty much, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but he was like, I haven't even read Project 2025. I know that some people wrote it. But
yeah.
I don't
But
know what it is.
I think as a strategy, like he needs to be for as much as like the Democrats, like I would say, need to hammer him on that more. He needs to be like, I don't believe the goofy shit, all the
I mean,
goofy shit.
he's pretty much saying that. And here's the thing.
Yeah,
I know Kamala Harris, if she is the nominee, and the vast majority of the potential Democrat nominees will do this in a debate, and it is a mistake. They will bring up Project 2025, and Trump will just say to their face, I haven't even read it. You guys talk about it more than Republicans do. From what I've seen of the RNC so far, Project 2025 was only brought up to make fun of the fact that Democrats are the ones that are bringing it up.
I mean, I saw someone say in regards to debating Trump that the Democrats need to stop trying to debate him on his record and
Yes.
like they get and show up to debate. No one's preparing to show up to debate Donald Trump. They're showing up to debate his and like it's proven that Donald Trump just will not let you do that. And so you can't enter into this with
It's
that as a strategy. You will
Shane
lose every time.
Shane Gillis does a bit. He was talking about the Trump primary in 2015 or 2016, 2016. He was like, these poor bastards showed up and had no idea what they were in for. He's like, these guys have been in politics for like, a decade or two, and they're expecting like a policy debate with maybe a singer here and there. And just Trump comes in and is like, Ted, your wife has a dog face. It's
Yeah,
like they didn't know what
yeah.
to do.
And none of them have.
But
Like, I mean,
here's the thing. Donald Trump is actually so easy to defeat in a debate.
I
You
mean,
just
well,
ignore him.
yeah. I mean, the thing that the moment it go back to 2020, the moment Joe Biden lost to Donald Trump was when he told him to shut the hell up. That was
Hmm.
it. That was the moment you lost. I'm like,
And the moment
that's
he
it.
lost,
He got under your skin. He got under the skin, man.
yeah, and the moment he lost in
He gets.
2024 was when he did this.
I mean, yeah.
Anyway,
Oh man. Oh man.
that was painful to
It's been
watch.
a shit. It's been a real shit show. Like the Democratic Party they
They
must have
dug.
really overconfidence, and hubris is the word I would use. Hubris,
Hmm.
because like
It's pure
because
hubris.
like clearly they thought those court cases were going to take him down, and like they need to just accept the fact that he is bulletproof, and like the only way that they're going to beat him is at the ballot box, and like they need to get a good solid candidate, and they didn't do that, and it's embarrassing. It's
Yeah.
embarrassing.
And honestly, it's too late now because even if that's why I say their dark horse is that unknown, like Obama 2.0. And I'm sure he or she is out there, whether or not they'll be smart. Because if anybody remembers back in 2008, Barack Obama was not supposed to be the nominee. He was not. He In fact, they actively opposed him in the very, very beginning. Then they realized he was popular and went, "Oh shit!" So there, at that time,
Mhm.
they weren't so stupid as to go away from the momentum. Now I think they are because I think they'll probably go with Kamala, and that's a mistake. Because first
That
of
is an
all,
absolute mistake.
Trump is going to eviscerate her in a debate. Like it's actually
Yeah.
she might get sympathy votes because of how badly he'll tear her apart in a debate. She ain't ready. She can't.
Yeah.
She
Nah,
can't
she's
debate
been
Trump.
too passive in her. She hasn't been around. I've been so many like, where's Kamala? Where's Kamala? Like that's
I mean,
happened too much,
basically.
and he would go to that immediately.
Well, and not only that, Kamala is caught lying or stretching the, I don't know why I said that with Trump, lying. She's been caught lying or stretching the truth more than Joe. And sometimes Joe isn't so much lying as he's literally gotten it mixed up. Like Kamala just flat out lies about shit all the time. And I don't know if it's ignorance or willful lying, but either way, like Trump's too sharp for that. Honestly, he is. He'll eat that alive. The same way he ate Joe alive during that first debate. Like Trump came to play, and it's funny because Trump is doing what most people wish he had done in 2020. He's arguing policy. He's pointing out how bad of a president Joe or just elected official Joe Biden is. He's still Trump, but toned way down. And I think honestly the
Mhm.
secret is because they took away his Twitter. I think it's the best thing they ever
That is
did.
the greatest thing that they ever did for him, and that's why I've seen a lot of people say that he went away. He went away, and people forgot how. Because honestly, what lost Trump in 2020 and what would lose him this time is people being exhausted by him. Like just how he's exhausting. Like the person who's not necessarily against him but doesn't love him, I find him to be exhausting. By the end of the 2020 election, I just wanted to take a nap. Like I was like,
For
it's
real.
so tiring.
I was hopeful
Um,
too. I'll be honest. I was hopeful in 2020. I had predicted that Joe Biden would be a bookmark president. I didn't think much was going to change. I didn't really think, I thought COVID
yeah,
was going to taper off. Arguably, they made it worse with a lot of more Democratic Party policies. And I think the whole COVID thing was honestly, I'm not one of those conspiracy theorists that think like the Democratic Party was behind COVID, but they absolutely took the opportunity. And to a certain extent, I think they were just gauging to see how far they could push it.
here's what I will say. Okay, here's what I will say about every election that happened during COVID, every leader that was in charge, um, uh, who was in power at that moment got reelected except for Donald Trump. Like Justin Trudeau, he stuck in a sneak election to try. He got reelected. Same thing with like there was an election in New Zealand. I think Boris Johnson got reelected, and Boris Johnson was an idiot. So like, um,
Boris
just the fact
Johnson's
that
UK though, isn't he?
Donald Trump should have got reelected, and I feel like again I in no way believe in any conspiracy. So I'm just like Donald Trump lost himself that election by being Donald Trump. Like
Well,
I think yeah, if he had maybe not been Donald Trump a few more weeks of the year, I kind of feel like yeah, he would have slam dunked that as a reelection, and we would be having this conversation.
so the thing about that is, and I'll just touch on, I believe Trump was his own worst enemy, but at the same time, and this is the conspiracy I do believe. So I do honestly believe that the 2020 election was stolen, but not in the way people think. So many states, and this is why it's legal, but legal in air quotes. Um, so many states changed their voting laws in the 11th hour, and they used COVID as an excuse to basically allow unsolicited mail-in ballots, which I think is I don't think it's right. And because the Constitution gives the states the right to hold elections as they see fit, I'll be honest, I think there might need to be some kind of change in the Constitution to I think states should be allowed to hold elections the way they want to, but I mean just mailing people ballots and unsolicited, I think is that's asking for voter fraud.
Mm, hmm
I mean,
hmm
it is.
I
And
mean, I mean, I
I mean
mean, like,
Democratic candidates openly admitted to going to like big apartment buildings and being like, "Oh, well, here's a ballot for you. Oh, yeah, well, I can just fill this out for you." Like they fucking admitted to it. But it's
I
technically not
mean,
voter fraud because it was legalized in the state.
yeah, it's one of those like it's one of those. It sounds like it's
It's legal, but it
not
shouldn't
technically
be.
breaking. It's not technically breaking the rules, but it's breaking the spirit of the rules. Kind of what it sounds like. It's
That's
like
a
yeah,
great
you're
way to
you're
put it.
playing, but you're not playing fair. Kind of. I do get it.
It's kind of like how
Um,
the NBA refs kind of look the other way with traveling a lot of the times.
yeah, yeah. But also one could argue, I mean, that's one of those things where bending rules for political gain, I would argue both parties have always bent
They
rules for
they
political gain.
they do, and
My
I
thing
call
is
them
always
out when they do it.
my thing is like don't if you're gonna do it, don't be obvious about it. Like don't did like I get it, you guys gotta do bad shit. Just don't tell me that you're doing the bad shit. Like that's all
Well,
I
and
ask.
fortunately for the
You
Democrats,
hide it better.
they have the media on their side because I'm telling you right now, if the Republicans had pulled the same shit, the media would have been all over their asses and would have called into question the integrity of elections. But I'm sorry, when you have one party that doesn't even want you to have to verify who you are to cast your ballot and one that insists on it, how was the one that insists on it the bad guy? I
I
don't
mean,
understand
yeah,
this.
I mean, yeah, I will say that certainly, like you're like there are certain they complement each other. So like for me, like for your Daily Wire, that then you have oh fuck, I bring it up and now I can't remember what it's called. Oh my god,
The Blaze?
what Cenk
Oh,
Uranic,
Young Turks.
Young Turks. So to me, like the Young Turks is to left as Daily Wire is to right. Like they're like they're the ids to each other. You know what I mean? Like
They
yin to
yeah,
yang.
Yeah, they
That's
definitely
kind of
were. I would honestly make the case now that Daily Wire's bigger, but they philosophically, yes, they're very much.
that's kind of how I kind of see it. So like sort of in the same way that like if you're going to the mainstream example, CNN to Fox News, like I take everything I hear on both with like a quite a wide grain of salt. So like if I see something on CNN, I'm like I immediately go to Google and I fact check it to like and it's kind of a similar thing where I'm like, yeah, like I mean, obviously a lot of Fox News is editorialized. So like Tucker Carlson, for example, like when he's like M&Ms aren't fuckable enough, I'm like, he's kind of a hard guy for me to take seriously. Like I'm always gonna see that clip of in my brain of Jon Stewart going, "You're wearing a bow tie." And like I can't with
That
him. I
is
can't.
that is one of Jon Stewart's great. For those who don't know, you're talking about when he was on Crossfire, right? It was
Yes, I am. Absolutely.
way back when Tucker Carlson was on CNN. And back honestly, when I think CNN was fairly trustable, like that was kind of the source. And then
Yeah.
shit went awry. But yeah, that was one of the most beautiful segments. And then I still chuckle because Tucker got kind of a big boost, at least with people that lean more right. But I was the one who was like, there's a video when he was in Russia after he interviewed Vladimir Putin where he goes to a Russian grocery store and he's like marveling at the concept of putting a coin in for the cart and then you get your coin back when you replace the cart.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I'm like, has this motherfucker never shopped in an Aldi in his life, like ever?
No, probably not. He probably is a guy who shops at the
I was
Aldi
gonna say,
Forum, I'm sure.
and I mean, Aldi's not the only store that does that. It was just the first one that came to mind. But it's like this is not new.
Yeah, yeah.
This has
I was
been
like, I
around.
have
This has been around. I think it was probably around more in the 70s and 80s.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
just that
it's.
and his stupid fucking laugh. I just can't with him. I just can't.
I wish he'd cut the back of his hair. It's off-putting.
Right? Like that's the it's like there's just a lot of those guys where I'm just like, I can't with you. I can't with you. And like the left just doesn't we don't I don't think the left has a Ben Shapiro or a Steven Crowder. I don't think there's a left equivalent to those guys. Like I just don't.
Not anymore. I would have thrown Cenk in as the left's Ben Shapiro
Oh,
until the Daily. Well,
maybe
until
Hasambi.
I was gonna say Daily Wire has become they're not quite mainstream, but they're a hell of a lot closer than they were only a few years ago. And it's because they
Like
branched
there's
into entertainment and whatnot as well.
like there's like when I say like I guess why we'll never say I'm a liberal because like there's certain especially on TikTok like I forget his fucking name but Harry Harry something.
Harry Sisson.
There's a clip Sisson. I hate that guy so
I
much.
hate what is with this. I try. I'm sorry. I usually don't insult people, and this
I
isn't an insult.
just
This isn't an insult. It's an observation. Why does he always look like he's just been slapped?
right. And my thing with him is
He's
every bit of
delusional.
news is the most amazing thing just happened, and I'm like, dude, come on. And like
I live.
I'm
I don't
like,
know if
look, man, I get it. You're being paid. You're being paid to do this, right?
yeah.
Get that bag. I respect
I
it.
mean,
Like,
I'll
make the
get it.
money.
I've
Yeah,
said
I would do it.
repeatedly. I've said repeatedly that if Daily Wire is hiring, I'll take Jeremy Boring's slave wage any day of the week. Like
I
I'm
mean,
ready
yeah,
to.
right. I mean,
I'll do it.
hey, look, like, oh, like, it's just, yeah. My big thing in like real life, I can't stand hypocrites. That's my big thing. I can't stand
That's
hypocrites.
why I can't
So,
stand
like, that's
Steven
why I'll
Crowder.
forever be like, you guys on the left, you're just as bad. But like, yes, like socially, I tend to agree with some of their ideas. But like in
Why do they? But
practical
why did they?
application, it's
But they have to put. Why do they have to push it so far? That's why the left is shooting themselves in the foot right now. I spoke in our conversation about the culture war pendulum. It's getting ready to take a far right swing. Now, I don't mean far right as in like alt right. I mean it's fairly far left right now, and it's getting ready to go pretty far to the right because the left has just gone too far. And as we all know how a pendulum works, the further you go left, the further it's going to go right because they just couldn't the radical left especially just can't leave well enough alone. They can't take the win. Like the gay rights, I mean for the most part, it's been achieved. It's been won.
yeah, yeah.
So now they have to push it further because the nature of progress I'm not even blaming people. The nature of progressivism is never satisfied because okay, you achieved the thing. Okay, now we need a new cause. You have to be constantly feeding the beast, right?
But I would push back on the idea that it's about to push farther right. I would make the argument that if anything, it's going to push more center because I think, like I mentioned earlier, those real far right, like right wing Twitter Nazi weirdos, I think they're like an albatross around Trump's neck that he like stepped on them to get elected, and I think he's realizing that it's unpopular shit. Like I just think that stuff is like as it's been like pulled into the more mainstream that people are like no like yeah we don't like not that I'm suggesting that you're I mean it kind of feels like it wants to push into a theocracy it wants to push in a theocratic direction and like as a person who is not that makes me go ooh and I think that that stuff that the real like the Project 2025 people who like want to pretend like they're with Trump, whether or not they're not, they want to like pretend that they were like that. I mean, I don't know that date the right guy stuff. I don't believe he goes on a lot of dates. I just don't. He's a weirdo.
Yeah,
Like that guy. I think Donald Trump should be like, I don't know that guy. He's a weird guy.
yeah.
I mean, I think he
Well,
was in his cabinet at one point, but like I would
so
be like, I don't go with
yeah.
those guys anymore.
So I do have added context for my pendulum metaphor. Remember how I said about progressivism is constantly moving forward? So if the center started here and progressivism keeps going this way, even when the pendulum swings right, it's where the left used to be.
Okay, interesting. That's an interesting analogy. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, that's
Because
fair.
like I said, I remember Bush era Republicans that were like, I don't want no gay people in my state. And now they're like, yeah, we're cool with it. I just really don't want to watch you people have sex.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
some
yeah,
I really like you do you, but I just don't want to see your dick flopping around in a pride parade. And I don't think that's too much to ask for. I really don't.
no,
Now, you can say don't go to the pride parade. Okay, I won't go. If I don't want to see that, I won't go. But at the same time, there are children there. And that's where people on the right kind of still feel like they have a leg to stand on because it's like, okay, but you're taking it too far. Involving the kids
yeah,
is taking it too far for most people on the right side of the aisle. Now, the more extreme evangelical types think that they still think being gay is a, the really hardcore ones are like still think that gay people are going to burn in hell, but the vast majority of Republicans truly just don't give a shit anymore.
yeah, yeah,
Certainly millennial Republicans, how some of them are gay. Like
yeah. I mean,
they
yeah.
just they just don't give a shit anymore. It's like it's whatever. But
I think that
now
was I know I reference. I think that was an episode of American Dad where he meets the gay Republican
yeah.
caucus.
Oh yeah. I remember that. And he was like, but at first he doesn't know, right? That's the joke.
Yeah,
He's like,
yeah.
oh,
First,
you're
I
a
think yeah,
fine, upstanding young man.
yeah.
But so anyway, going back to because the theme of this episode, as usual, we've gone off on a tangent. That's my fault. So we know. I mean, I'd be willing to hear somebody out to make a case for Kamala. I just don't see it realistically. So that
I
begs the
thought she was the
question.
default. So
I
I
mean,
the fact that you don't think
she
she is blows
no,
that's kind of
I
that's interesting
I
to me.
think I think she probably is, but I'm listing why she's a bad choice and won't
Interesting.
accomplish the goal. Like I said, they need a dark horse. They need an Obama 2.0. A lot of people are talking about Michelle Obama. She would
She's
ignite.
not.
Well, here's the thing. This is assuming that they do, right? If they tap Michelle Obama, she would absolutely ignite the base, but the base is already ignited against Trump. So
Yeah, absolutely.
it would do a lot at rallies, but the
But Michelle hated the fact that Obama went for a second term. Like she hated being the first lady. She
yeah,
pretended like she was better at faking it than Melania is. By the way, as a quick aside, nobody was happier than Trump lost than Melania. Like I've never she practically skipped out of the White House. She was so excited to be out of there. She's like, "Do you want to go again?
you know
Why?"
what? I gotta say, and I always have sympathy for presidents that when they leave office, and it really struck me first with Bush. When I saw George W. leave, I just felt sorry for him. I felt bad for him because he looked fucking tired.
I mean,
He looked so tired.
the only one I would argue who rode off into the sunset was Obama.
But
He took
even
every chance. He rode
but
off into the sunset on a jet ski and it was like Obama out,
yeah, but
disappeared for 2 years.
so ever since George W., what I've liked to do is when a president leaves office, I like to look at their first inauguration and then the inauguration of the new president and compare what they look like. It's they age way more than 8 years.
Yeah, oh for sure, oh for sure. Yeah, Obama. I mean, he was a young, fresh. He went gray. Obama went gray in
Yeah,
eight
Obama went
years.
great. And like honestly, George W. just looks so relieved. And I even said, I was like, listen, I think everybody should stop making fun of George W. for at least 2 years. Just
I
leave the
mean,
man alone. Now I get it. George W. jokes are fantastic, and he
oh,
did it
I'm
to
a
him.
lover of a George W.
He,
joke.
he fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, you're not gonna fool me again. Like
That's what
they're not
happened.
even
Yeah.
they're not even jokes. They're just quotes.
And they're just quotes. Oh, they're so good. They're so good. And then it's so funny because you watch him in interviews and it turns out he's actually a pretty smart
Turns out
guy.
he's
Like he's not,
smart as shit and
yeah, he's not a
speaks
dumb guy.
Spanish. Like, I didn't
Yeah,
know he
yeah.
spoke Spanish. I knew Jeb spoke Spanish, but like George W. Bush speaks fluent fucking Spanish, and he's like, "Nah, it's not very good." I'm like, "Motherfucker, you're on Telemundo. It's good enough."
Oh, oh, Jeb. Poor Jeb. My
Yeah,
favorite
poor
clip of
Jeb.
Jeb is still the clip of him being like, "Clap, please." It was so sad. You're just like, "Oh, Jeb. Nobody wanted a third Bush. You had no chance. You
That's
had
true.
no chance, Jeb."
Nobody wanted a third Bush, but so Michelle, like I said, she would ignite the base. I don't think she'd do anything because certainly nobody on the right, because a lot of people on the right just hated Obama with a passion. They say it was because of policy, and that's true for some of the people on the right. I have a sneaking suspicion about other reasons, but
Fair
uh,
enough.
Herman
I don't,
Cain
I
was
don't,
fairly popular, so
I just, yeah, yeah. I just don't see Michelle. I like of the people who would jump into this. I don't just don't see her jumping into this. I see. I have my person in my brain who I think could beat Trump. Well, who I would have said like a year ago could beat Trump. I don't think she can now.
who is that?
Um, AOC. AOC because to me this election is a game about gaming millennials. And I think Trump had an edge over Biden because millennials hate Biden. They're calling him Genocide Joe. Like they hate him. They hate
Well,
his guts.
not millennials. That's Gen Z, my
No,
friend.
no, sorry, Gen Z. That's what I mean. Gen Z, they're calling him Genocide Joe. So I don't think the Gen Z was going to vote for Trump. I think they were just not going to vote. So
I
I think they need to get a candidate to galvanize Gen Z, and I
I'll
think
be
AOC had the best chance, but her stance on the stuff overseas has made her unpopular amongst Gen Z. So I don't think she has
except
that edge anymore.
except for the pro-Palestine crowd, but that's a minority. That's a
That's
very
what I'm
small
saying.
minority. Um,
That's but the pro Palestine crowd don't like her either because
because
I
she
don't want to get into
voted
that
because
stuff because
she
that's going to get me in trouble. But they don't like her either.
yeah, well, and plus AOC had a lot of goodwill coming in, and I said this when she got elected. I said what she needs to do because of how young she is and the fact that she's a first time representative, which she's not anymore, but at the time she was first time
Yeah.
representative. She needs to keep her head down, shut up, and listen because she could absolutely be groomed to be a power hitter in the Democratic Party. Unfortunately, she did two things. She didn't shut up. She said a bunch of stupid shit. She got in with the radical crowd. And I said two things. She did three things. She got in with a very radical crowd because she loved being a part of the squad. And she fell in love with a celebrity.
I mean, I don't disagree with that, but you guys kind of like a celebrity. That's kind of Trump kind of demonstrated, Reagan kind of demonstrates. You guys don't mind a celebrity
We
president.
do, but when the celebrity first starts being a celebrity by saying that the celebrities are evil and then becomes one, it's purely hypocritical.
I mean,
The
that's
case
yeah, but again, I think demonstratively, hypocrisy in politics is not really for I would say the general populace, not for someone like me or you who's a bit more tuned in, but I'm talking like regular dumb people. Like I
well,
think like
they can just be told a story and believe it. I think ultimately that's what it
that's my
comes down
point.
to. Well, but
I
like
think
take
if like
I'll show you something real quick. Okay, this will prove my point. Hang on one sec. I should have worn this one actually. Okay, so does everybody remember when AOC went to the Met Gala? I forget the year. I think that was in 2020, maybe 2021. But she wore the dress that said "Tax the Rich," and a Met Gala ticket is like 30 grand, right? I actually there's a rant on the YouTube channel. I just tore her a new one over it. I said, "You hypocritical bitch! Like you have tax the rich written on your fucking dress, and you're at an event where minimum entry is $30,000." So we made this
that's pretty
T-shirt
bad. No, that's funny. That's good.
because that's like There were literally people like outside screaming "Eat the rich" at the Met Gala, and this
I mean,
bitch.
I can't defend that when I'm like, yeah, the South Park guys don't get the healthcare system. So like I definitely get the indignation about that. But
Well,
I
so
guess
in
more
here,
my
well,
point
but
with her,
yeah, well, my point with
what
AOC is that she doesn't believe in what she may have at one time, but anymore she doesn't believe it because it, as Jordan Peterson said, most lies are acted out than said. She might even think she still believes it, but she doesn't because if she actually gave a shit about the poor, and I'll give credit, maybe she was given the ticket, right? Maybe.
mhm,
Still, the dress was 15 grand, I think, 15 or 18 grand. And
mhm.
even if that was a gift, right? What she should have done if she actually gave a shit about the poor is she should have sold the fucking ticket and donated it to a charity of some type.
I mean, yeah, yeah,
That's what
or
I'm saying.
auctioned it off for
She
charity,
doesn't,
yeah.
yeah, or actually, that would have been better. Auction it off. But she doesn't actually care about these people because if she did, she
True.
would do shit to show that she cares and everybody says, "Oh, so and so did so much in Congress." I'm like, "Yeah, it's real easy to spend other people's money to help the poor."
I guess with AOC, I mean, maybe you feel like there's a better Democratic Party candidate that represents this, but
I don't.
I think a hot issue, and Biden has demonstrated this post debate, is how much it seems like people are concerned that your country is turning into a how I always fuck up this word gerontocracy.
Yeah.
Um,
Gerontocracy. No,
yeah,
I agree. I agree. Here's
and I think like yeah, I saw someone say this, a fresh faced young candidate who's not 100 years old who is tuned into the youth. Everyone always writes off the youth vote, but they're coming up like they're turning 18 this election.
well,
I think they
I'll be honest. I write off the youth vote on the left, and here's why. And I'm probably gonna get hate for saying this, but you know, tell me when I'm telling lies, right? Um, Here's the thing. So Republicans on election day, generally speaking, no matter what the age, because the younger people learn this from their parents. Generally speaking, Republicans are at their polling place when it opens
yeah.
very early because they have to go to work. Because
Hmm.
Republicans, generally speaking, don't take the day off work, at least not any that I know. So
Hmm.
they go vote at like, they get there at like 4 or 5 in the morning. Then they vote so they don't have to wait in line. And then they go to fucking work. That's what I do. And I'm not a
Hmm.
Republican, but that's what I do. the, well, I'll prove my point with a story. Again, to quote Jordan Peterson, I forget what interview. I said this a couple of times, but he said, how I stopped getting people protesting at my lectures? I started holding them at 8 in the morning.
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, because the idea being that liberals sleep in.
Young liberals, yes.
Oh, that's funny. I've never put that together.
I
Yeah,
do. That's why I do write off the left vote because even if they sleep in, let's say they go to the polling place, and I've physically seen this happen. Okay, so this is why I think this way. I've seen this happen more than one time in more than one election. So I'll see some younger looking people get there, and I mean, say I'm judgmental all you want, but I can tell they're on the left because of how they're fucking dressed. It's I'm sorry it makes
I
people
mean,
uncomfortable, but it's true. It's true. And they get there and they see the lines because one year I did actually have to go vote later because of my work schedule. I didn't get off till later in the afternoon. And they got there, saw the line, shrugged, and walked out. I've
huh,
seen this happen.
interesting.
I've seen this happen multiple because they don't want to be bothered. That's
That's so
why
interesting.
but that's
Canadian
why
liberals and American liberals are so different.
I mean I bet you they are. But
We're committed.
so
We'll stand there. We'll wait. We'll vote.
but I mean a lot of liberals will, but when you need every vote you can get and some people shrug and
Hmm.
say it's not worth it.
Hmm. Well, here's what I will say. In the there's a left leaning person I don't follow, but they pop up in my For You page a lot. And they say this. They say that the Democrats are going to lose so long as they keep pushing in this anti-Trump rhetoric
They will.
campaign, and that's what's gonna kill them. And I agree with that. It's like people accused Trump of playing the hits, right? But the Democrats are playing the hits. That's what they're trying to do, and it's not working.
more
It's
so
not
though.
working.
Like more
Like,
than Trump, yeah, because the thing is the Trump hits are popular with his base. Everybody's getting kind of sick of the Democrat. Like I said, the 2025 thing's just getting to a point where it looks like not even paranoia, but just like fanaticism. They're crying wolf and there's no wolf. So that when they do cry
yeah,
wolf, everybody's like, yeah, but you said that about such and such. But anyway, who's another because I had a whole list in my head. So AOC. So because AOC would appeal to the younger Gen Z liberal crowd, but not so much the older, and based on the reasons I just said, I don't think she'd win in a general. And in fact, I think she would alienate some more moderate leaning Democrats because, like again,
interesting.
she's openly anti-Israel, or I shouldn't say anti-Israel. She's openly pro-Palestine, and in this case, you might as well say you're anti-Israel. Um, which I just find it so ironic that she can condemn anti-Semitism and yet stand with, the pro-Palestine groups in the same breath. And it's like, lady, like, do you not see it? I honestly
Yeah.
don't think she sees it. To her benefit,
Uh,
I don't think she sees it.
to be fair, I'm not. I see the thing. Okay, here's the thing. My thing with the left leaning guys, they're just not as. I'm not as tuned into them because they're not. They tend not to be as loud as with the exception of AOC. But I think AOC. I see. I'm in the space of I'm just playing the game. And I'm like, I'm doing the thing that Donald Trump did where I'm like, how do I game the system for mass voter appeal? And I'm like, AOC's on the YouTube streaming with the YouTubers and the TikTokers, and she's playing Among Us. And like she's playing
Is
she's
she
playing
really?
to the youth crowd. Yeah, yeah, she did. Yeah, her and I want to say Omar. I want to say
Oh,
I don't
Ilhan
know her full
Omar.
name. Yeah, they both were. Yeah, they were both a while back. I think it was for the 2020 election. Um, like that. But to me, that's like those are the guys you need to play to because those are the guys who are the future. Like I just
But
like I
those
don't
those are
think
those are but those are okay. So yes and no. The
there's not enough
generation
playing to those seats. I should say.
Well, but so the Republicans kind of are. So at least in the United States, Gen Z is way more conservative than the Democrats would like to admit because they look, and I don't even mean like a lot of them are conservative or more right leaning without even realizing it because they like people like Elon Musk. They like people like Donald Trump. They like people like Vivek Ramaswamy. They like
Hmm.
people that go out there and make money. Like they like Andrew Tate. They like, you know, those, those guys, the money bros. They like them. They're fans of them.
Interesting. I see the Gen Z I'm seeing. They don't. They don't. I'm seeing a different brand of Gen Z. So that's where I'm
There's
like,
definitely
maybe you're right. Maybe you're
no,
right.
no.
Maybe she's
There's
not. But
the thing is, there's definitely a side that isn't. But I mean, okay, so like I'll use Andrew Tate as an example. Like you don't become the most Googled man on planet Earth when you're appealing to young men without those young men like being into what you're saying. That doesn't
true.
happen
But
mathematically.
I would also throw back that Andrew Tate fell off real hard when he went to Romanian prison. So
Yes,
like,
yeah, but the message still resonates.
I
I
do
should
agree
I
that
should
there's a
I shouldn't say the message still. So Andrew Tate started. Well, he didn't. I'm sorry, he didn't start. Andrew Tate was part of a group of people that were largely saying not necessarily the same thing, but the same sort of philosophy, like
yeah.
encouraging young men to go to the gym, make a lot of money, and buy a fast car. You know, and with young boys and men, that really young men, I mean Gen Z men, they fucking loved it because it's probably the first time in their life that somebody credible said, "You can do this."
Well,
So I get
again,
it.
I would also feel like that's my role today is to push back a little bit. I would say that how I discovered Andrew Tate was I stitched a video of him where he said some ridiculous thing about how like if you're into Star Wars, no hot girl is ever going to want to bang you.
I saw that actually. I
Yeah,
saw that
yeah, and
stitch.
I said, yeah, and I was like, are you like a satire of a like are you a serious person? Like, there's no way this is a serious person. Like, he's like a satire of a douche. Like
No,
that's
he's a
like this is a
character.
joke, right? Yeah, and And then there was so often I kept going back and forth. Of, I think he believes what he said. So that's where I'm like, yeah, there are elements of like helpful, like
The thing is he doesn't. And I've got two examples, not just of Andrew Tate. So Andrew Tate says that, and yet he's a known massive fan of Street Fighter, going so far as to reference Yoga Fire with his brother as an inside joke multiple times. Like you
I
don't know
would
that unless you played Street Fighter a lot.
I would argue yeah, he didn't make enough of an effort. To be fair though, with a lot of these guys, it's about being lazy and making money. Like they know that they can appeal. Yeah, so like you want to give him credit, but then you're like, but also I get it. He's running a up until the you know not great stuff that came anyway.
Well, and
Um,
that's another podcast too. I don't like, don't get me wrong. Andrew Tate is definitely an asshole. I don't know that he's guilty of the crime that he's alleged to have committed. But that's another podcast. Another
so
example. Oh, go ahead.
sorry, go on. I was just going to ask you to go back to the. I guess you're eventually going to get to who you feel could possibly beat Donald Trump. That because that's the thing I'm most interested in.
Oh, I already said their dark horse candidate, whose name we probably have never heard of, much like Barack
Oh, so
Obama.
you don't there's no one that you have in mind in particular that you think
No,
that
nobody that's a name, but I have a few that I think they might consider going with, and I will list the reasons why they won't be Donald Trump.
interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm
So
curious.
the other example I'm going to cite, and I can't stand these guys. Are you familiar with Fresh and Fit? Okay,
No.
don't look them up. They're fucking terrible. Basically, their whole MO is they're full of shit. Like they just straight up lied about most of what they've done and talked about. Particularly Fresh Prince CEO. That dude's full of shit. But they're full of shit in so many ways, but here's the one way. I've heard them repeatedly through clips and actual podcasts because I've watched some. Because I will say this much: sometimes they're actually, it's more so their guests that are entertaining, but sometimes they're
Mhm.
entertaining. But they call, like, they make fun of guys that like watch anime, but then on their soundboard, they've got fucking Yu-Gi-Oh sounds.
That's funny.
I'm
I mean,
like,
hey, I just because okay, I come from a place of like people in my life used to shame me for the things I like. So I'm like, anyone
yeah,
who
same
shames
here.
anyone for the things they like sucks. And so I can't jive with guys who even guys who pretend to be like that. I'm like, I don't know. I don't find any humor in that.
Yeah, but they're not
So
even
that's why I'm like, oh,
they're not even general sounds because they have Dragon Ball sounds too. But like literally one is you activated my trap card. The context you need to understand that reference, you have to have seen the anime or played the
yeah,
game or read the manga. And in the United States, you saw the anime because
right.
unless you watched the anime, you didn't know fuck all about Yu-Gi-Oh! Like,
Yeah, there's no, yeah, that's
so
way too,
so
that's way too specific of a
yeah,
reference.
so these kids were nerds that watched anime and cartoons and then grew up and got lucky and made some money and admittedly went to the gym, right? And then started acting like they
Yeah,
were hardcore. And it's
yeah.
like, no, dude, you're just a nerd that grew up. That's fine.
And what's frustrating to me is like being a nerd who grew up to be like jacked or whatever. To me, that's way more admirable than like being a douche who's mean to women. Like
I
I
mean,
can
yeah,
yeah. I like I can't think of oh I'm spacing on a really good example. But like yeah, the best character is the guy who's like 6 foot tall, jacked, and a total sweetheart. Like that character is way more interesting than the guy. You know, the guy who kicks sand in your face is usually the bad guy. Like
yeah,
he's not the guy I want to be.
but it's an inferiority complex.
Yeah.
That's what it is, But anyway, that's enough about Andrew Tate and Fresh and Fit. But so another person I thought about. I mean, I don't think they're gonna tap Bernie, but they might. And if they did, the only thing I would say if I'm Donald Trump is, oh, he wasn't good enough to go in front of Hillary Clinton, who I beat next.
I don't think they would. And I
Well,
saw
he'd
someone
just point out
else.
to
I
how
saw
old he is too.
That's what I was just gonna say. I saw someone say this, but you could tap out one old guy with another old guy. No, that the only game the Democrats have is that again, the only card they have is that age card. Like it's the only thing they
Right.
got. It's the only thing they got. Because otherwise,
I'm
yeah.
very, very curious. Here's the thing though, holding a primary for them might be the worst idea they could do if they want to win the election. Because I'll be honest, the Democrat voter base is not unified, like
No, it's
especially
really
now.
not.
And so it's gonna be. drawn out fight for people that are at opposite ends of the spectrum, and there's so much division in the Democratic Party right now, thanks in part
Yeah.
to Joe Biden, honestly. Because say what you will about Trump, he seems to have done the impossible, which even in 2016, I was predicting that Trump would tear the Republican Party apart. Somehow, he's managed to unify the party pretty well. I mean, the entire
Eh,
I
I mean,
mean,
I would. There's still
there's
segments of
fringes.
them who are
Yeah.
anti-Trump. There are
But I
fringes
mean,
of
but
anti-Trump.
like, yeah, there are, but they're few and far between now. I mean,
Yeah.
If the RNC is any, the RNC was essentially three things. It was, well, four things. It was fuck Joe Biden, like kiss Donald Trump's ass for 5 straight days, introduce those that didn't know him to JD Vance, who is now like so their guy. It's kind of ridiculous.
I mean, I
And
think
Jesus.
so. I mean, my thing with JD Vance is I mean, I saw people point out that he's not going to help Trump because he's got a wishy-washy Waffle House record.
See, I
Um,
don't agree with that.
but I think the thing about JD Vance is he Mike Pence was Bible Jesus freak. Like that was his card that stuck with him. He couldn't get out from under that, and it's why he was never going to be president. Um,
Pretty much.
JD Vance doesn't have that stigma. He's younger. He talks in complete and comprehensible sentences. Like he just like
He's into Jesus, but he's got a much more laissez-faire attitude about it.
exactly,
You know,
exactly.
which again, I think that's just a byproduct of being a millennial, frankly.
Like I think any the thing with the my thing with the Democrats is you need a candidate. The best thing they got is to just go for how Trump isn't normal. Like, not that he's bad. Stop trying to do this like he's the next Hitler fascist thing, and just
But
be
even
like,
that won't
yeah,
work. But even that
he
won't work
says
because that's
weird
what they've
shit. Do
run
you
on.
really want to do this for like my thing would be like, you know how like every week was exhausting for 4 years? Do you really want to do that again? Like like that's what I would if I'm talking purely winning. That's not how
Yeah.
I vote. Like to
Well,
be clear, I don't vote in that way. But I'm just saying if I want to win,
but honestly, let's say they do that. You know all Trump has to do? Well, under me, if you remember, gas was under $2 a gallon. Wages were
I
up,
mean that's
inflation was down, GDP was up. We were energy independent, which I mean, not literally, but if that had kept tracking, we would have been before Biden shut it down when he assumed office. Um, all Trump has to do is talk about the shit that Trump administration did. No new wars, no new wars. Iran was, he actually said this, Iran was broke. China was paying us. Putin was scared. And it's like, tell me when he's telling lies
I
based
mean
upon objective data.
true. Try look. I don't know. My thing with Trump is I never paid enough attention to him on a policy level. It was always on like I say
Well, see,
like there's just like I'm a big like I can't stand obvious like why did you lie about that kind of lies and then like Donald Trump, that's his whole thing. He just says really obvious and like I I work okay. Quick story about me. I worked with a woman who was just like Donald Trump while he was running for
oh, I'm
president.
sorry.
No word of a lie. Like
She just
she
went
would
in.
just say she would just
She
say
just,
really obvious lies, like just things like provable, like why would you say that? Like that's just not that's just on it, and it's like and it was exhausting, and I just couldn't imagine how anyone would want to have that, and so that's why I have an extra special like yeah, and I had a friend like that. Like who would like look up at the sky and say it was sunny when it was cloudy kind of guy.
but not
So
technically a lie. Not technically a lie. The sun is just behind the clouds.
behind the clouds. So
That's what
I'm
I'm
like
saying. You
I'm
just said
like
you if you understand how Trump's mind works, he's a lot less scary because like yeah, you know he's lying, but you can also like I don't know, you can like warp it to make it less scary, I
like
suppose.
my thing is like, does it not get like just like with Joe Biden? It had to have it did it clearly did because he's no longer running for president. Get exhausting having to explain everything that he says or try like I would not vote for him on that basis alone. I'm like I can't. I need a normal guy. Can we not just get a normal? That's why I respect at the very least JD Vance because he's just a normal guy.
And fair enough. And then the other thing to consider though, and this is probably the most influential part, is the economy. Because say what you I know a lot of people. Why do I keep saying it like Trump? I know a lot of people. No, I know
I did the Trump hands on our podcast too all the time.
I know a lot of people on various sides of the political spectrum, and a lot of them are saying the same thing. It's like, I don't really like Trump, but I do kind of miss gas being like a buck 93 a gallon. I do miss like the Trump era economy. I miss it because it was just objectively better. Now I know COVID was responsible for it going down, but the Biden administration, like, yes, inflation is down. It's still not the Trump levels, and it's because they keep spending money on stupid shit. And at least, like, because everybody's, and it's factually true, prior to Biden, Trump spent more than any other president in history. Biden beat him. The thing is,
Mhm.
a lot of that spending was COVID relief, initial COVID
Yeah.
relief. Biden spent it on COVID relief that was not necessary and a bunch of other stupid shit that we just didn't need. He expanded for the first time ever. The federal government is the largest employer in the United States.
Hmm.
Like, okay,
Hmm.
explain to me this logic. Yeah, Sander, I just saw your comment. We already talked about Michelle Obama, by the way, but it's the best people. I'm sorry. I just have so much fun impersonating Trump. It's so much fun.
I mean,
Um,
it's a solid that and your Joe Biden are both solid. They're both solid.
it took me forever to do Joe Biden. And actually, I have to thank him. It was when he started just drifting off and yelling, I was able to nail it. Because,
You do the best John Stewart kind of nailed the description of it, but like the Joe Biden when like he's answered a question and then he walks away, pauses, considers, and comes back. That's your Joe Biden. When he's like, no, keep walking, Joe. Don't
San,
turn around.
Sander, do you want me to do this? Because I feel like you're feeding me lines here, so I'm just going to do it. The best people, the greatest people, maybe too great. I don't know.
It's like,
I feel like you're
I
feeding me
can't do a
lines.
Trump. I can do
It took
I
me
can do the
so
hands. That's
long.
it.
It literally took me years to get my and I can only do rally Trump. I can't do quiet Trump. I can only do loud Trump. Kind of like how I can do quiet Biden, but I can do quiet senile Biden. They're just like, oh, thing. Anyway, you know,
I,
that's
yeah, no, I'm not a good, the one, I'm not a great impressionist. I mean, everyone could do a Christopher Walken. Like, whenever could do it. Everyone, I saw that as a
but
tweet once. Everyone
that's
has a Christopher Walken impression.
easy.
That, and obviously, I mean, the William, there's something on the plane, you know,
There's
there's
something on the wind.
something on the plane. The key is you have to pause for like
Yeah.
every time you do it, even longer than the previous time. There's something on the plane.
Don't think we won't
Um,
be doing our Shatner impressions like
Oh, I mean, I'm
all
coming
the
prepared
time.
with a Shatner impression. You better. Speaking of which, obviously, you heard. I don't want. Maybe I'm not allowed to mention it, but the theme song, the song, the
Yes. Okay,
virus
so
sent it to me.
I guess we'll do this on air. My idea, and it's only because of I don't want to say how it's edited. It's what I don't want to happen. I mean, it is because of how it's edited, but not because of how Virus edited it. It's just so I think for season one, it should be the one that didn't have. Did you hear the original one or the one after he added you?
I heard both. I personally, all due love and respect to virus. I like it better when it's just you, but I didn't have the heart to. I
Okay,
didn't have the
I
heart
felt the
to.
same way, but here's the thing, it's got nothing to do with you. I actually like some of the elements that he put in for you, but
Yeah.
the thing is, it makes us sound like we're opposed to each other. Like
Oh, interesting.
it makes it seem like you're trying to like fight for your time, and
No,
I'm
that's
trying
so
to
funny.
and I'm trying to, and that reflects negatively on you. So I thought at least for the first season we would do the solo one, and then maybe we can add because I love when he added spur time because I'm like, oh
I
shit,
know,
that's funny.
I thought that was fun. I was he had me do one. I didn't hear it in there. He had me do one. He had me do a hell yeah, and I was kind of hoping he would put it at the end because I'm not gonna lie, the actual
I
instrumental it
actually
kicks so much ass.
So, you know what's funny? For those of you who don't know, we're talking about our upcoming podcast, which will debut in September, The Final Frontier. We're doing a watch along.
We settled that that's the name. We settled on the
Yeah,
name.
we settled on. Well, it's in the theme song now, so we don't have
Yeah,
any.
I'm cool with it. I'm
I'm
cool with
cool
it.
with
I
it
just
because I see where he was coming from. But we're doing a Star Trek watch along, and hopefully we'll get through every season of every show ever done.
that's
But
the
we're gonna
hope.
That's knock on wood. That's the hope. That's the whole reason why we hope to be doing this. Although one day it would be fun if we, actually start getting rich from this, that we have like a bridge studio. That would be so fucking cool.
That would be. I mean, look, I was having fun with the communicator. Every time we do the podcast, I'm sitting there waiting for Jordan. I play with it, and he's like, "Stop it, stop it." And it's
Oh, and
funny.
we're
He
we're
thought it was
gonna,
amusing that it came with like a 42 page, like reference guide about the communicator itself. I thought
which
it was
is
really
actually
funny.
kind of cool. We'll probably talk about them, but the only thing that I don't like is I wonder if you can loosen it somehow. It doesn't really flip open per se.
No,
I mean, you can fake it, but you have to like, but you can't. I mean, I guess you can simultaneously push the button, but it's not very effective. Anyway,
it's,
I said,
but
"Wow,
yeah,
what great people!"
I'm pretty stoked about that. See, I always say that's my vision of like the future is the Star Trek future, but I don't think it is. I always say it's actually probably more the
It's
Orville
probably
future.
more the Orville, yeah.
But also that's like in my opinion, an offshoot of the Star Trek future.
Which it is. It is.
But like still, it's like, yeah.
And then, did you notice that it does the tricorder sound that goes way too long?
Yeah, that's like this is I think this is I don't know what the sounds are by name, but there's one of the sounds that Jordan's like it goes on for way too long.
It goes on way too long, and it doesn't
And
stop
I
when you close the communicator.
no, I know. I'm like, yeah. I'm like this thing is cool, but yeah, Jordan think it goes on for way too long.
I just love it when Virus gives me scenarios to be Donald Trump in. I love them. They're so funny. My
I mean, yeah,
favorite,
he's
my
a fun
favorite
guy to
Yeah.
impersonate.
My favorite one though, there's a show and I wish I could remember the name of it. I've seen their clips on TikTok where basically they give you a prompt and a character and the one guy said Sauron from Lord of the Rings, but as Donald Trump. Oh my God, it's the
Oh my
funniest thing.
goodness.
He's like, "We're gonna make Mordor great again."
But
It's like
okay.
it's so wonderful.
So, but here's my question to you as not a Donald Trump supporter, but it's certainly a guy who's more on his side. Like my guy, Justin Trudeau, he did a thing where he went to India and he had an outfit for every day he was there. And that was like proper embarrassing. And obviously everyone likes to go to the blackface stuff. Like that is embarrassing as shit. And not everyone in Canada may have the humility to be like, that's embarrassing. Most people would. Like with Donald Trump, are there not moments where like his goofs and gaffs are like slightly like on a or like when he goes to like the UN and all the UN leaders laugh at him and like isolate him and ostracize him like they're in high school, like it's Mean Girls. Like is that
So
not like slightly embarrassing?
So in a way, yes, but it depends on the thing. So the UN thing, I'll be honest, um, if it's not Trump's fault, then no, it's not embarrassing. In fact, I think it should be embarrassing for those leaders that they're acting like they're in
Interesting.
middle school. And like here's and this is my American showing, but like he was read the riot act because I guess he walked in front of the Queen and apparently that's rude or some shit. But I'm like, of any person on planet Earth that should be disrespecting the Queen of England, it's the President of the United
I
States.
mean, look. I can't sit here and lie and say that it's not he's not funny a lot of the time. But one of the funniest Donald Trump things was when he took that picture standing next to the Queen, where they're like miles apart, arms like at the side, and they both look like they'd rather be anywhere else. That was a very funny
It's
picture.
fine because
Like
I'll
they
be
both just like, I don't want to talk to this person.
yeah, but then also you have things like there's a lot of things that Trump uh was looked at favorably, but you don't hear about them because it goes counter to the mainstream news media, at least in the United States. For example, Trump never got the credit he deserved for the Abraham Accords, ever. I'll be honest, I think he should have at least been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. It's barely mentioned. And when it is, it's somehow given credit. It's not given credit to Trump, even though his administration spearheaded it. Like there's no way to take that away from him. And then you also had the former president of, I believe, the Netherlands, who said, yeah, when Trump said that NATO needs to start paying their fair share, everybody laughed, and he said, no, we're going to, and he said it was the best decision we ever made because he was right.
There's a oh man, I can't remember. There was a video I saw which went through. It was like it wasn't all bad shit. There was some bad shit, but it wasn't all bad. But like I to be like every president has bad shit. Like
Every president has bad
everyone
shit.
wants to like be like Obama, greatest president ever, swish. But
I
like,
mean,
didn't he do the drone civilian thing
and the tan suit, ugh.
and the mustard on the hot dog, Jake? Disgusting.
That
How dare
that's
he? Quite
that's
frankly,
that's some
disgusting. And how dare he?
that's an American thing though. Most people, I don't. I think mustard's disgusting. It's too French for me.
I see. I'm with Obama. I like a little mustard on my hot dog.
I thought he said no mustard.
Oh, did he say no? I thought he was pro mustard, and they were upset that he was
No,
pro
I think I
mustard.
think I think he was anti-mustard because I seem to
I
remember a
do
clip of
remember
him.
the tan
I
suit
seem to
though.
remember a clip of him being like, "But no mustard."
Okay, fair enough. But
I
I do
could I
remember the
could be wrong.
audacity of the tan suit.
Yeah, I mean, God, that's
I
horrendous.
mean,
He
my
should have
thing
been
was like
impeached.
I listened to like yeah, we talked about Robin Williams, but I remember the Robin Williams bit where he made fun of him for choking on a pretzel, and I'm like, can like that'd be a slow week for Donald Trump if he just choked on a pretzel. Like that'd be like a regular Tuesday for him.
Funny though. It's
Like I
fucking
think
really funny.
okay,
Really
okay,
good.
did he actually choke on a pretzel?
I don't think so.
Oh, and that was my other thing. Did he actually wave at Stevie Wonder? I've always wondered that, and I can't be bothered to actually Google it.
Oh, I think that was George W.
Yeah, but Joe W. Yeah, he did actually W actually
I think
wave
he
at
did.
Stevie
I
Wonder?
think he did. I think that's a thing that happened.
That sounds like a thing. I mean Joe W. Yeah,
You
I
know
do
what
miss the
though?
Bush.
In fairness to W, like a lot of things we do without thinking about it because like
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I've spoken to a deaf person before. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's a
So
thing
I
because it's not I mean unless you live with a deaf person in your life, it's just you don't consciously think about the fact that this person can't hear you,
okay.
you know?
I have one of those this makes me look bad kind of
Oh,
stories in regard to that.
Kofifi, yeah.
But I sort of understood Bush when it came to that because I used to work at a movie theater, and there was this one time where like I worked at the box office, and I'm like, hey, I can help you over here. Hey, I can help you over here. I can help you over here, and I said loudly to myself, just like not really thinking about okay, ignore me, ass. And then I turned, and then he walked up to me, and he like lifted up a sign. He was deaf, and he was giving me instructions on a little piece of paper, and he just took, and I felt so bad. I was like,
Well, you
oh,
know what? Don't
I
honestly. And
was mean
actually,
to that guy.
it's actually you weren't mean to him. You didn't know. But also, I find this funny because my business partner, God love him, he's Canadian, by the way. But like it's
Oh,
kind
he
of
gets me
funny.
then.
It's kind of funny though because when there's somebody with a disability of any kind, he doesn't lose his shit, and it's like it's not hateful because he's trying to be not offensive, but it's like so we had a customer who came in not that long ago and she was deaf, but obviously you don't know she's deaf when she walks in. But I started talking, and she can read lips, but I mean, you kind of figure it out kind of quickly that she's deaf.
Yeah,
So he has this look on his face like he doesn't know what the fuck to do, and I just go grab a pen and paper because it's like, what else are you gonna do? Like it's not
yeah,
insulting,
yeah.
you know.
Once you know, yeah, then you accommodate
Yeah. And
appropriately.
and it just wasn't a thing. And I think a lot of times the more offensive part is making a thing of the thing instead of just
Yeah.
adapting, you
Oh,
know.
for sure. When you make a that most people with a disability would much rather you just like acknowledge it and move on rather than make a big deal about it.
Yeah, it's
That
just kind of
tends
like,
to be
oh,
the
you're
thing.
it's like, oh, you can't hear me. Cool. Here's a writing
Oh yeah,
utensil. Like,
but I yeah, it's so funny because like I love Facebook memories because you get to go back to And like I just remember how hard I went for Mitt Romney, who I'm like, man, compared to Trump, that guy's milk toast as fuck.
Well, but that's why he
He wanted to
lost.
kill Sesame Street. Like
Well, technically, he wanted to defund Sesame Street.
he wanted to take the money out of Big Bird's hands.
Well, Big Bird is capable of making his own money, at least according to
Hey,
him.
maybe Big Bird should have been on that Challenger mission. That's all I'm saying.
Hey,
That
hey.
was a joke. Was that too far? Was that too dark a joke? Oh no.
I don't know. I don't think so. But speaking of which, I see some people are watching. Who do you think I'm talking to you, America and or Canada, because I know you're here too. Um, who do you think the Democrats should or will pick? Throw
Oh,
that in the
I mean,
comments.
I feel like I mean the default feels, but I feel like everyone's gonna say Gavin Newsom.
But here,
I know we haven't
okay,
talked about
so
Gavin Newsom yet.
here, here's how this is Gavin Newsom's kryptonite. Okay, so, and I just found this out recently because I didn't know because I didn't really care. Oh, and New Zealand, represent New Zealand. How do you guys feel about Trump in
Nice.
New Zealand?
Yeah,
See,
I'm
this is
wondering.
okay. I'm gonna gush for a minute. This is why I
Would you cancel
love
a tour over it?
that is a solid reference. Virtual high five.
Uh yeah, I am on my pop culture references.
Big Mike
Dick, I
coming
don't
in
have a
hot.
life.
You heard it
I'm
here.
chronically
Mike.
online.
Mike who? Who's Mike? Are you talking? Oh,
Hey, we got some randos yesterday
hold
we
on. Are
were
you
surprised
talking?
by.
Are you talking about Mike Obama?
Mike Obama. Who's Mike Obama?
So Mike Obama is the which I gotta say I love it for the entertainment value, but I don't believe it. It's the conspiracy theory that Michelle Obama used to be a man. Yeah,
Oh,
it's a Michelle
uh,
Obama reference. I thought so. Big Mike coming
uh,
in hot.
but
I
yeah.
I love it because it's hilarious. There are some people that actually believe it. I do not. And before anybody says anything, I was also one of the people that when the Republicans were like saying that Barack Obama's birth certificate was fake, I was like, stop. This is
I
fucking
mean,
stupid.
that that was back when Trump was still a we don't take him seriously as a political like that was when he would do those Twitter videos from his desk where he's like, and I love the taco salad. Those
I love
ones that was at the
Mexicans.
period where we just didn't take him seriously. So like no, that to be fair, there's the theory that that's what caused him to be president because he went to the White House Correspondents' Dinner and he didn't like that he got roasted by Obama because he really didn't
I
like
don't
Obama for some reason.
I don't
And
know
I'm one of
about
those
that.
people that I think he just had a personal beef with Obama. I don't think it was. There's a lot of people who are like it was a racist thing. I just didn't think he liked
Yeah.
Obama.
That's the thing that always irks me is people say that Trump is a racist, and I always hit them with the same thing. How? Give me an
I okay.
example. And they never
This is
can.
my retort to that. I think that he is I describe it as like old timey racist. You you're driving home from like Thanksgiving dinner and you're like your uncle accidentally said the N word. Like he didn't mean it. He didn't mean anything by it. Like he's not a bad guy, but he says the
See, but I
occasional like that kind of like old
no,
school, like
but
he's from a different time
but I think
kind of
honestly,
racism.
if that were the case though, he would have slipped by now.
I,
Honestly.
I he strikes me as the kind of guy who he says the blacks in private. Like, there's no way he does it. Like, there's no way he does it. I refuse to believe that he's that. He just strikes me as that kind of guy. I don't think he
Well, but
means anything by it. I
so
don't
do
think he
most Democrats
means.
though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny. I asked you guys about Jordan Peele, but I mean, Get Out is about liberal racism, and that
Yeah.
absolutely exists. Performative racism
Oh,
that absolutely is
probably,
absolutely a thing.
yeah, probably more in terms of political parties, probably more, at least it's shown more than like your good old garden variety racism. But what I say to Trump is like I can't speak to anything said in private because I wasn't there, but no
Yeah.
one has ever been able to show me any compelling evidence that Donald Trump is a racist in terms of what he has done in the public eye. Not once. And in
Yeah.
fact,
There's a
and
difference
that's
between private thoughts and public ones.
yeah, and
I couldn't disagree
and
with.
that's and that's the other dirty little secret that the Democrats don't want to talk about is he's a lot more popular with Black Americans than they would like to admit. He's a lot more popular with Hispanic Americans than they would like to admit. He's super popular with a lot of Asian Americans, especially the older generations. And this I've experienced firsthand because we've had a couple, and I mean, a couple of like Korean customers in my business that were older, and they all like one of them literally came up to me and she was like, "You're voting for Donald Trump, yes?" And I'm like, this is not a conversation that we should be having.
Interesting. Interesting. I mean, I've maintained from the for this. Initially I was like, I don't know. Him losing on the fact that people just don't like him. I really think that's going to be a sticking point this time around. I think that people not liking him thing is not going to help him. I think that didn't help him last time, and I don't think it's going to help him this time. So I think Democrats just have to find someone likable and
Right,
who's not 1,000 years old.
but again, we come back to the main point.
They,
Who is that?
who is that? That is the question.
Of the big names in the Demo, because at this point, their logic is probably going to be, well, we have to go with somebody recognizable because we don't have time to educate our voter base, even though that's probably their best shot.
Yeah,
They won't because, I mean, they're the political geniuses that run the DNC selected Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. I mean,
you
that's
know,
just it.
so I mean, I thought maybe they might consider like an Elizabeth Warren, but again, she didn't even get past a primary.
So
Now,
who's here's my question though. When do you think they went, we got to swap out Biden? Do you think it was after that first debate? Do you think they
after the debate,
honestly delusionally thought that? Really?
I think that the
I just
debate
don't know
sparked.
that.
I think the debate sparked it, and then his big boy press conference was the nail in the coffin for
So
two reasons.
here,
One, the fact that he referred to it as a big boy press conference and directed his staff to do so as
did,
well.
did he actually call it that?
Yes, and so did the
That's
White House
amazing.
press secretary, and Jen Psaki on MSNBC referred to it as a big boy press conference, and then he proceeded to do the same thing at said press conference. And then
It's
the
incredible.
the irony can't be lost on you that when his own attorney general came out and said we're not going to press charges on his classified documents case because
Yeah.
he is a senile old man that means well, and then the same day that afternoon, I think the announcement was made at like 1 p.m. Eastern time. At 5 p.m. Eastern time or so, I can't remember the exact time, he came out and had a press conference to show that he was mentally competent and then proceeded to forget where they got the rosary to commemorate, not to commemorate, I'm sorry, to memorialize his son's death, which I love the fact also, and I'm not trying to dog on him, but I mean, he kind of did it to himself. He says, he essentially says, "How dare they bring up my son?" And then he brings
Yeah.
up his son because he brings up his son all the time, which is why they brought it up, Joe.
So
Forgets where they got the rosary, and then proceeds to screw up or mix together, get confused between the president of Mexico and Egypt.
okay. So the thing about it being called the Big Boy Press Conference is okay, another podcast I listen to. It's the type of humor that they have on the podcast is like they would call like a lot of the Daily Wire people like freaks and weirdos. Like that's the kind of language they use. So they referred to it as Biden's Big Boy Press Conference. So I thought that was a joke. Like
Nope,
I
they
didn't
actually
realize like
called it.
they actually called it. That's amazing.
You
The
can Google
campaign,
it. Yeah.
it's like they're trying. My thing with it's like they're trying to lose.
Well, and then
That's what it
whoever
feels like.
like if you look at Biden Harris HQ, which is the official like their social media handle for the campaign, that person should be fired or they're actively working for Donald Trump because I guess the other day they tweeted just "I'm sick" in one tweet and then had a subsequent tweet and listed a bunch of things that Joe Biden was sick of. But like this is after he was diagnosed with COVID.
Ugh.
And it wasn't an instantaneous response to. Apparently, it was up for a few minutes before they had the thing. And I'm just like, and if you look at Biden Harris HQ on TikTok is so unironically hilarious or unintentionally hilarious
Yeah, I've
because
seen some of their
the
shit. It's
the
awful.
the number one comment in any video they post is "What app is this?"
Right, right. Yeah, that's my thing. It's like Joe Biden could have sealed this election, could have won. Remember how like they need to go for that Gen Z vote? They could have won this election, and all he had to say is, "I won't sign the bill." That's
And
it.
that's
That's all
and
you had
that's
to
what
do, Joe.
and that's what Donald Trump did recently. I won't
Yeah,
sign the
Donald
bill.
Trump. Donald Trump, the guy who started this bullshit, had the good sense to be has like, look, man, Donald Trump maybe a lot of things, but he knows how to sell and he knows how to pander. And like even he saw the writing on the wall and he was like, look, clearly this is an election loser. He like we talked about the abortion issues, the same thing. He sees it's an election loser, so he pivots
Which
to
at
same
least,
deal. All
yeah,
Joe had to be like was, I won't sign the bill. And
yeah.
he would have won the election hands down.
Well, I don't know about hands down, but it would have helped. It wouldn't
It
have
would
hurt
have
him at
helped
all.
him.
Yeah, and speaking of the abortion thing too, it's like I'm pleased to see that they learned from 2022, or at least Trump did.
Yeah, oh, yeah, for sure. He definitely did.
Yeah, because that's why he just became a moderate, or I should not even moderate. He became completely neutral on abortion. Um, but I don't know. I'm thinking of other. So another person the Democrats could tap, but again, it would be a bad idea because it's too late. Is they could theoretically tap RFK Jr. to come back into the Democratic Party. However, um, even if he agreed to do it, which I don't think he would out of principle, but let's assume in this example that he does, they spent as much time trashing him as they trashed Donald Trump.
I just my thing. Okay, here's the thing with RFK. I I think we talked about this. I vote NDP. So like as far as Canadians go, I'm voting independent here in terms of of an analogy. But that his voice, man, his voice, it really is a sticking point amongst voters. Like if the
It
number
is,
one comment on all of its videos are like, I can't vote for him because, and that sucks. And I'm not saying that that's right, but I think that's the thing that's holding him. That's the thing that helps Trump win is the fact that he can speak and he's charismatic. Like that's why people like him as much as he does.
which
And I just
actually
don't think
we found out by accident. I get a lot of praise for my Trump and Biden. We found out by accident that Eric actually does a very good RFK impression. And
really.
like, and it kind of happened by accident, and he kind of felt bad about it. And I'm like, don't feel bad, dude. That is hilarious. We can do so much with this. Like, if it came down, and we will do this. If it came down to RFK as a Democrat and Trump as a Republican, we would have a mock debate and just make a farce out of the whole thing.
I mean, that was
It would be so much fun because
uh,
he does the voice, and I don't know how he does it, but
that's impressive.
I will say this though. RFK, he said, and I was like, I don't know, but I can verify that it's true because if you compare early RFK videos to now, it the more he speaks, the better it gets.
Uh,
It's nowhere near as bad as it was. Because I said the same thing when I first heard him, was like, oh, I feel like such a dick, but I can't listen to that voice for more than like 5 minutes at a time. It's like nails on a
yeah.
chalkboard. It's significantly better. In fact, it's kind of imperceptible to me. It's still there, but it's nowhere near what it was.
I mean, to
And
be
I
fair
still
though, I've been able to listen to a president speak for like 8 years. So like, you know, what's new?
I don't know who else could they get? Because I'm thinking here.
I
Um,
don't think there's anyone, but because they've all just kind of fallen in line. So like none of them
yeah,
stand
they
up because
all.
none of them have tried to stand up. They've all which like
Oh,
okay.
I didn't address Gavin Newsom.
Oh yeah, you did. Well, yeah, I mean, I have a feeling I know where you're going to go with Gavin Newsom, which everyone goes to, which he
where am I gonna go?
sucks.
No, not
He
just that.
sucks. He has
So
no
here's
appeal federally.
so
He's
here's
like the Californian Ron DeSantis. Sorry.
I mean in a way, but so here's assuming that it's Trump. Trump, not God damn it. Yeah, fuck's his name? I just had a brain fart.
Newsom.
Newsom. I had DeSantis in my brain. I'm like, that's not right. So here's Trump in a debate with Newsom. Well, Gavin was governor of California, which, as many of you know, has become a third world country, almost a third world country. There's a lot of violence, there's drug use, there's homelessness. You haven't done anything, but you cleaned it up for China. When China came to visit, you cleaned up all the garbage and the needles, and they use a lot of needles because they shared drugs in San Francisco. And you cleaned up all the fecal. I don't know what Trump would use. I don't know if he would say the word shit or if he would use some colorful.
I mean, it
Cleaned up all
depends.
the
Is he
waste.
saying it in private?
No, no, I'm talking about on a debate stage.
Oh, and I don't think he'd say shithole on a
I
debate.
don't either.
He's very willing to say shithole, but I don't know
Yeah.
if he'd say it in a debate.
Cleaned up all the excrement. He'd probably say excrement because he wants to sound smart. He's like, you cleaned up all
Yeah.
the excrement when President Xi of China was coming, and also your ex-wife told my son to tell me to tell you hello.
I, okay. I don't know what to beyond when I saw him debate DeSantis and like depending on if you're on the left or the right, that's who won that debate. If you're right, if you're on the right, DeSantis won that debate. If you're on the left, uh, Newsom
See,
crushed him.
as a so here's the thing, and this is I know this is going to be an interesting take, and it might surprise some people. It depends on what your debate priorities are, because in terms of policy, DeSantis clearly won. However, in terms of charisma and debate skill, Newsom won that debate.
So
Newsom
okay,
is
that's
a
interesting to me.
Newsom is a tremendously better politician. Now, here's the thing, and this pissed me off because I'm a DeSantis fan, generally speaking. I don't agree with any politician on everything. Generally speaking, I like DeSantis from a policy perspective, although I even have a blog post about talking about why do I keep doing the Trump? I even have a blog post about DeSantis's sort of will being taken too far. As of right now, though, I'm in line with a lot of it. But my problem with him and what hurt him in the primary was the fact that he was so damn boring. Like he
Okay,
seemed like
so
a
interesting to hear
nerd.
you. Interesting to hear you say that because that yeah he has no charisma. Like
Except
he's
watch his RNC speech, and I was watching his RNC speech, and I'm like, where the fuck was that?
so okay
Now
okay.
you
Here's
get
what
a
I have to
speech
say.
coach.
Here's what I have to say about the RNC. So I said to you that the RNC looked like they were desperately trying to appeal to Gen Z. And then the minute I got off the air talking with you, you embarrassingly sent me a video of Hulk Hogan. And I'm like, wow, this could not have more boomer energy. Like this, I think I
Well,
said to you,
you
this
gotta
would be the
appeal to the
saddest thing
base,
I'd ever
brother.
seen if I didn't see a video of him selling his liquor at a local liquor store. And I'm like, oh man, oh he's hit some lows. The Hulkster's not doing so good, guys. And there was one other person they had that was equally like, this is some real boomer energy. You guys are not appealing to Gen Z in the way you think you are.
Well, but I
There was
think
one.
they're I
There's
think
one other one.
I'll be honest too, and I think Vivek is uh, going to be useful for the Republican Party if they can keep him because he does speak to Gen Z at least more. If Gen Z's parents are Republican, he really speaks to them. And he's not wrong about what he's saying. Their problem is packaging, and Vivek will help them. He's not the answer, but he's on the right path. So their
My problem.
message. Oh, sorry.
Sorry,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
go on.
So
Well, I
say
was just gonna
their
say my. Sorry, you go. You go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say their message is correct. Their packaging is way wrong because it gives old man boomer energy.
It does. My thing about guys like Vivek and really anytime you hear the term um conservative or a black conservative is like there's one black conservative guy who pops up in my For You page
Oh,
all
a
the time, but
beacon.
like I think it's one guy is in Wolf Hat, I think his name is. But anyway, my thing is like the real right, super right guys. Like they want to be their friends, but like those guys will never be your friends. They're never gonna invite you to dinner. They're never gonna like you because at the end of the day, like 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 a guy like Matt Walsh, a little bit of a racist. Like he's never gonna like you. So like
I think
to try to get up there.
I'll be honest. I think you're a little hung up on Matt Walsh. I really do.
No, I know. He's just like when I think conservative, like
But
just conservative jerk.
he's a conservative that conservatives I know still think he's an asshole.
Yeah, so he's the guy when I like he's the guy I picture. Or more like with Vivek, it's that clip of Ann Coulter being like, I'm never gonna vote for you because you're brown. Like that's like that's to me, that's
Now
he's playing to an audience that's never gonna like him.
to be fair,
That's what I mean.
did she say that I haven't seen the clip myself. Did she say brown or did she say Hindu?
I think she just said I don't know if she said brown. I can't remember. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've seen that clip.
I
But it
would
was in reference to the
wager
color of his skin. It was definitely to the
I would wager to
oh
say Hindu just based on religious grounds, but which I said that was the problem. I was critical of Vivek, and I kind of get I understand politically why he did it, but it's he couldn't keep it up because the way he talked about religion early on, I just the way I heard him talking about, it, I'm like, oh, he's a Christian because they are. there are Christians in India, and
Yeah.
certainly they immigrate to the United States, so I didn't think much of it. But then I had read or I'd heard him say that he was Hindu, and I was like, I'm not an expert on Hinduism, but the way he's talking about God is a very like he's using the Christian words and not the
Yeah.
Hindu words. So, and I realized what he was doing, and I'm like, oh, he's trying to pander to the, you know, he's trying to pander to a group that's never going to vote for him just on fundamental religious grounds.
I'm like to say that Vivek is conservative. I thought that I've seen people who say they don't buy it. They think he's just playing to a conservative audience. No, I could believe that as an Indian he would be conservative because
Oh, sure.
Indians are very conservative. That's kind of the ironic bit is like here in Canada, there's a whole thing where people are just ugly racist to Indians. And it's ironic because like they're a very right-leaning group of people. Like I went to work one day, one of my Indian coworkers was like, "Did you watch the Tucker Carlson Putin interview?" And I was taken aback. I was like, "Oh, well, I
Like,
wasn't
no,
expecting that from
why did
you."
you?
No, did you? We talked about it in our TikTok live. I skimmed it because I like to keep myself abreast of what other people think. Like I'm like, yeah, like how you disagree with someone if you don't hear what they have to say. So I disagree with Tucker Carlson. So yeah, I like to I yeah. I
That
don't
is
like
a
dissenting.
very. Did you watch that interview, by the way?
I skimmed it. I couldn't do that. I think what was it, an hour long? I couldn't do 2 hours
Yeah.
long or something crazy like
I
that.
I
I
actually
couldn't do the whole
rather
thing.
I rather enjoyed it. Again, I have my issues with both of them, obviously, but I rather enjoyed it. I thought it was quite informative, more informative than people gave it credit for. But I'm sorry, I have to shout out Sandor. Please tell me you subscribed because your comments are fucking awesome. Let me tell you something about Gen Z, brother. I love this guy.
That's good. What are you
I
gonna
love this guy.
do when
So
Boomer
what
goes
you gonna?
wild over
Well,
you?
he said Trumpomania. So what you
Trouble
gonna
man.
do when Trumpomania? When he, I love it. He couldn't get the last bit of the shirt to rip, so it's great.
It's just
Well, it's because
I think
he had it too high up.
my favorite clip from the RNC was how the crowd would just cheer for literally anything.
That
Like just
yeah,
that's where I'm like whenever I see like liberal left leaning media being like, we need to take the RNC seriously. I'm like, no,
actually,
no. I
this year, normally I would agree with that. This year, I think the RNC was extremely effective with what they were trying to do. They accomplished their mission 100%, or missions.
see,
They had
I don't necessarily once again push back. I don't necessarily agree with that because I think like yeah, there's some of the speeches kind of conflicted with
sure,
like
but
we talked about
those are the speeches. So the vast majority of the speeches were there to fire up the base, and nobody's going to talk about them because there is, as someone who's currently still watching it in its entirety, there's a lot of Jesus. I mean, there's a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
Jesus.
Because my thing when it comes to like voting, I think the last two elections kind of prove that the key is again not so much the Trump supporters or like the far left, far right. It's those guys in the middle. And I just don't see Hulk Hogan ripping off his shirt at the RNC. I just don't see that firing up those guys and making them go, you know what? I do think Orange Man good. Like I just don't see that happening. But I do agree with you that I said this as much as I hate to say this. I don't think that shooting is going to move the needle a whole bunch. I just don't know. I don't know what Democrats can do to overcome people's disdain for the Democrats.
Yeah. Well,
Like
and
that's my thing.
I do want to say one thing about the shooting, and honestly, specifically the Facebook group, the other 98%, you guys are so they're making fun of Trump for the bandage that was on his ear. That first of all, they were calling it a tampon, which I mean, clearly the people that run that page have never lived with a woman because tampons are not that small. But like it was a piece of gauze wrapped around a gunshot wound on his ear. Like do you guys not realize that those kinds of wounds don't heal after a couple of days?
Right.
Like
To me,
they're
it's not he's him. I wouldn't be the one I'd make fun of. Perhaps all the people also wearing bandages that got to kind of, but it's the RNC. Like my thing is I can't cast judgment upon it because it's the RNC. It's kind of it has an air of ridiculousness
I
to
mean,
it.
they all do, which I'm so looking forward, and I'm gonna try to watch as much of it live as I can. I cannot wait to watch the chaos of the DNC. I cannot wait. I cannot
The
wait. And
thing is,
I don't think we'll know who their candidate's going to be until the DNC because I think they're honestly going to have that level of infighting.
my thing with the DNC is like, yeah, it's gonna be its own kind of entertaining, but it just can't top Trump walking out to like a display of lights of his own name. Because like I'm
I don't know.
just like
I don't
I
know.
know I go to that evangelical base all the time, but it's just like thou shalt not commit idolatry as the man comes out his literal name. I'm just like, this is incredible. I
That's one
don't
of
get it.
that's one of the parts that they don't take super literally. I
I
mean,
know. It's just
have you seen some of the mega churches? It's like, fuck, really?
I know it's just so I'm just like there's just nothing the DNC can do other
I
than
don't
if
know.
Joe
Did you
Biden
have
went
you
out, shook Kamala Harris's hand, would have fun being president, and died on stage. It's just like an art piece.
actually what'll be great is if he comes out
Series
and says,
finale. Ugh.
Ladies and gentlemen, the future president of the United States, Donald J. Trump. I mean,
No, no.
Kamala Harris.
So
It'll
so
happen.
here's the other question: do you think he's gonna make it to end of term?
Yeah, I think he'll make it to end of term. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily think he would make it till the end of a second term, which is probably why they
So you
probably
don't think he's gonna you
they
don't think he's
probably
gonna
took
die from
him.
COVID?
No, they probably took him to a back room and said, Joe, do you want to live to see 2028? Just we can make that
You,
not happen.
Joe, have you seen the movie Old Yeller? How's it going, Yeller?
Yeah, I see a little foam in that mouth, Joe. You feeling all
You're
right?
right, right. It's feeling a little rabid there. But okay, let me posit this hypothetical to you, okay? Let's say Joe Biden really he comes into this, he's like, I'm a one-term president, I'm a transitionary president. I'm gonna set up and I'm gonna tee up the next candidate. Let's pretend maybe it's not Kamala, maybe he tees up someone else. Who do you think they could tee up if he went full bore into I'm not doing a second term? Is there anyone from that point perspective
It,
if they hadn't gone all in on Biden, is there a candidate
oh, there's a
early on they could
number.
have fronted that would have beaten Trump,
Yeah,
in your opinion?
there's a number of people. I think Gavin Newsom would have been on the short list, but again, Gavin Newsom is kind of easy to defeat at this point because okay, so they attacked Trump about boinking a porn star and cheating on his wife. Okay, Gavin Newsom did the same fucking thing, not with a porn star, but Gavin Newsom cheated on his wife, and now his ex-wife is dating Donald Trump Jr.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that is true.
I mean,
But my thing with going the going for Donald Trump's faults, that just doesn't work. Like you just can't do it. He's too
oh
real.
yeah,
Like
as Ben Shapiro put it perfectly. Donald Trump is a mud monster, and when you throw mud at a mud monster, it just makes more mud. It
pretty
doesn't
much to
matter.
me the strategy to beat Trump is to just be like, remember how tiring it was, and like remember how exhausted. Do you want to do that again? Also, like I'm like again, I'm not 100 years old. Like I'm cool. I'm hip. I'm down with the kids. Like to me, that's like as shameless as it is.
Well, but
Like
that's
they,
what their dark horse candidate would have to do.
yeah,
They'd have to get a
absolutely.
millennial. They'd have to get themselves a fairly young millennial. And I mean fairly young, meaning like under. If they got under 55, I think they'd be okay. Honestly, they just
I mean, yeah,
better
exactly.
better to be under 50. But if they got under 55, I think they'd be fine. Get somebody, anybody. They can basically just be like, look, let's rap, kids.
Yeah,
Listen, I know, like, get somebody with a bongo playing in the background and be like, I know Joe,
we messed up.
he's just too old. But you got to remember, Trump isn't that much younger than Joe. And remember, there was a time not long ago when Joe wasn't seen that.
Yeah, I would have been like, hey kids, you remember when a president could form a coherent sentence? We could go back to that. We could go back to that. Remember when you didn't have to translate what your
It's gonna
president
be
said?
Dynamite.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I don't know what
yeah.
you're talking about. I'm not speaking Chinese.
So I just kind of want it to be, I just kind of want it to be Michelle Obama with her hair like tied up in like a underneath like a baseball cap and like a fake mustache. And she's like, I'm Mike Obama, Barack's brother, long lost cousin, and it's like she's not just never addressed the fact that it's obviously Michelle Obama in a funny hat.
It's
Like
also really
Michelle, we can tell it's you.
it's
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 very
also
obviously you.
it's also really funny to note that Barack Obama's actual brother, Malik Obama, is a Trump supporter.
That actually that's bad.
That's
That's
that
supposed to be not
as far
good.
as I know, I read it at some point. Maybe he flipped, but I doubt it. Um,
That's
oh,
so
but so
funny.
here's the other reason why I don't think it'll be Kamala because I read an article today that Barack Obama is not endorsing Kamala Harris, and Barack Obama still,
Really?
yeah, well, because again, say what you will about Barack Obama, but he's very politically savvy, and I don't mean that as
He
a
is,
dig. I
yeah.
mean he is. He's got a good mind for politics, which is why he's still so influential in the Democratic Party. And he sees what everyone else with eyes sees, and that Kamala will not beat Donald Trump in a general election, or at least it's
No.
very unlikely. Never say never, but because they all said Donald Trump would never win, and but
Because the thing is, right, like Donald Trump, this is his last kick at the can, right? Like he's
basically,
not
yeah.
running at he's not running at 81. And I
Well, I
just
mean,
yeah,
he'll probably try, but I think at that point the RNC and the thing of it is Trump can be a very valuable asset to the Republican Party, but they kind of need to get a second term out of the way first so that he won't be just because Trump is kind of like the opposite of ADHD in that he gets fixated on something and he just wants it. He wants it. The RNC needs to get him his second term, and then he can be used as an asset for the Republican Party instead of having to worry about getting him in the White House again,
yeah,
especially at 81.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like Donald Trump. He always struck me as the guy who wanted to skip to the part where he had a library named after him, and he could just he could be like a retired president, a guy who got to say. Like he always struck me as the guy who like wanted to just say that he was president. Like, yeah, he was always like he just. I think we talked about how he was the guy who just didn't expect to get that far. Like, oh
But then
shit,
he
I
lost,
didn't.
so now it's personal. I like I'll admit that
Yeah,
absolutely. But Trump, I think, would be a very entertaining, like, and technically he already is a former president, but like for lack of a better term, I think he would be a very entertaining retired president, like somebody that they can send on the campaign trail. Like that would be entertaining as shit. Like think about that. When Trump's got nothing to lose personally,
I mean, yeah, yeah. But here's the okay. Speaking of just move, because I'm like, okay, we're talking about Democrats and who can win. And you argued that this didn't move the needle at all. But like, if they went really hard on like, because I'm always thinking like for you guys, I'm thinking like internationally, how are people seeing you across the
see, we
pond?
don't care.
And like,
I'll be honest, we
yeah,
don't care.
yeah, fair enough. So, but is there not like more like I guess no one's getting more moderate than me and you, but like are there moderate people who are like I'm sick to death of people making fun of our cartoon president? Like is that not affecting like
So
like
there
'cause to
there
me a cartoon president includes Joe Biden. I'm being
yeah,
even-minded
yeah.
here.
But see, I feel that way about Joe Biden because so here's the thing. Why are they making fun of us? It's not so much the fact that they are, because I'll be honest, we're Americans, we're kind of used to being made fun of internationally. It's the why. So is there something actually there? Like I understand why Europeans make fun of American tourists, all right, because yeah, we do stupid, annoying shit. Like I
Yeah.
get it. But when you're making fun of Trump for being a quote unquote bad president, I don't, you're not paying attention. Like
Yeah. I just
you're
like
just kind of making shit up, but you're making fun of Joe Biden. And the reason I'm not insulted that they're making fun of it, I'm insulted by the fact that the powers that be literally think the American people are so stupid that we wouldn't notice. And this is not new.
fair.
We've been
Fair.
like people have been talking about Joe Biden being senile for 4 years. This is not
That
new.
that's the big thing. Is like why is it a question now? It was a question 4 years ago when you voted for him, and you
Yeah.
guys. But to be
And
fair,
granted, it got worse.
it did get worse, and also they said that that wouldn't matter because he was only going to be president once, and we were gonna like it was a fresh new start, and like we weren't gonna. And to be fair, the Republicans promised the same thing. Like they were like, yeah, we're not doing this again. Like it was like they were like there was that faction of people in the Republican Party who are like ideologically. My thing was, if the Republican Party wants to survive, me as a person who leans more left, I'm like, they need to lose a few elections, restart, getting someone new, getting fresh blood, like getting a more palatable Marjorie Taylor Greene, or because I think, yeah, I think you guys need a palatable version of that to like where people aren't like, yeah, man, I don't like the wacky guys. Like, why is it the wacky guys are the face of my team?
So, but the problem with that is, and I think so, like, there's no mistaking Donald Trump's a wacky dude, but I think he was presented as a wacky dude before he really did anything much to convey himself as a wacky dude, and I think to a certain extent he's like, well, fuck it, they're saying anyway, so I'm going to lean into it. Um,
Fair enough.
is the fact that like at this point it was a conspiracy theory before, but now it's undeniable, and Joe Biden proves it because for literal years the mainstream media colluded with the Democratic Party. I mean, they flat out lied about Joe Biden. They flat out lied and said that, he's passed cognitive tests, which is obviously false.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, indisputably.
They say shit. I mean, the who would that have been? The Democratic Party directed Twitter. I mean, this came out in the Twitter files, so this is verifiably fact. The Democratic Party coerced Twitter into removing the New York Post story about the Hunter Biden laptop because it could make American voters view Biden unfavorably. I mean, they
Yeah.
flat out censored Twitter and not only took down the post, but banned New York Post profile for a time. And they've got the emails. Like this isn't speculation. This is pure fact.
So,
You
but
know,
that's see, my question to that would be when it comes to voting, or when it comes to attempt to wooing, like say, regular Joe Blow not tuned into the political sphere. Here's uh Donald Trump, criminal president, doesn't really put much stock into it, but then has to travel abroad and or travel to another country and is like, hey, how's it feel to have a criminal as a president? Like, does that not motivate that guy to like again vote for depending on who the Democrats pick? You're right. I don't think Kamala's it, and I don't know who it is, but if someone were to come in and be like, hey, I'm not a criminal, like is that not
well, but
like that? That's not
I'll
embarrassing. Like, is the idea
I'll
of it not embarrassing? I guess
well, no, because okay, so here's the thing about that. So,
to Joe Blow, I should say.
well, it won't matter when Trump is acquitted of that, and the reason being is because that case is on appeal. So yes, he was convicted, but the classified documents case got dismissed because it was found to be unconstitutional on the grounds the that Congress has to select a special counsel, and it wasn't Congress that selected a special counsel for that case. And if those of you may recall, the special counsel was selected by the same means in the case that Donald Trump was found guilty of. So now there's case precedent that's going to come up in his appeal. So he's probably going to get acquitted on appeal for those charges. And it actually gets rid of it gets rid of basically all of his federal cases. The only ones that are going to stick are the civil ones, which are also in appeal. But the worst case that's going to happen with those, he's going to actually end up having to pay the fines, which even if he's still even if he's still found liable in those cases, the fines will probably go down because I don't think you can make a case for that not being exorbitant in the fine department. And then
Interesting.
the only other one that sticks is the Georgia state case. But here's the thing: they're alleging, and I think some of this stuff is true, by the way, but the whole case rests on the fact that there was a conspiracy because it's a RICO case because they can't tie any of it directly to Donald Trump as an individual, but they can tie it to the Trump campaign and the Trump organization, or at least that's what they're trying to do. Hence why it's a
Mhm.
RICO case. However, under the Georgia state RICO statutes, the prosecuting attorney, who is also the attorney general of Fulton County, or district attorney of Fulton County, excuse me, is guilty of RICO
Oh yeah, I think I
because
remember you mentioning this. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I mean, if that's not a conspiracy to move money, I don't know what is. Like it fits it to the letter. You hired your boyfriend and were found lying about the time that your relationship started. So you hired your boyfriend, who was the highest paid attorney on the case,
Mhm.
and then you went on vacations together and you reimbursed him with cash. My
That's not
fucking
great, is
ass.
it?
Here's the thing though, and this is the political double standard again. As far as it stands now, they just took that. Here's the thing. If if the IRS is auditing me and I said, "Oh no, it's no big deal. I paid cash for that. Where's your receipt?" Don't have one. They don't take my word for it. So
Yeah,
why
yeah,
should they take theirs?
yeah.
And even then
That's
if
a
she
fair
gave
point.
yeah, and even if she gave him cash, there should be a record of deposit. Yet he couldn't produce one. So
Interesting.
that's a fucking conspiracy.
Yeah, yeah, you're not wrong. By its most basic definition, yeah. My thing with a lot of those cases ultimately is I I, I think that they were only going to stick if they moved the needle. Like that was my thing. Like when they were coming out and it really seemed like nobody cared and it wasn't really dissuading anyone from voting for him, they all kind of started domino effect like going away. And I think maybe if like they had noticed that people like it was like, oh shit, I'm not gonna vote for Donald Trump now. Like the people who are already not gonna vote for them, that just gave them a talking point, and it
Well,
didn't make the people who
yeah.
weren't gonna vote for him to be like I'm or who it didn't move undecided voters one way or the other.
Well, and the biggest
But
mistake
maybe
they
that's the
made,
tinfoil hat of
well,
me to
well,
say.
no, 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 I think you're spot on. It didn't have the effect they wanted it to. And it's not so much because they brought a case against him, it's the fact that they brought so many so quickly. It became
Exactly.
obvious that this was politically motivated. If you'd had
Yeah.
one, maybe two, like maybe if you had the state case in Georgia and probably the only one that would have stuck, and if they had gotten Congress to do it, but they wouldn't have been able to, so it would have still been found unconstitutional. But at least from a perception, if you had maybe the Georgia state case and then the federal classified documents case, because the other one that's still ongoing is going to get thrown out because it's going to be found unconstitutional as well because it's going to be the same argument about the special counsel being selected not by Congress.
Um,
Yeah, that's the other thing. Thank you, Sandor. In at least one of those cases, they actually changed the laws in order to charge. Oh yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking about. The hush money case. Yeah, and one of the civil suits even they changed laws twice to be able to charge him. And the hush money case is still the one that he was found guilty of is
yeah.
really interesting because if I and Sandor will probably correct me if I get something wrong is the charges initially would have been a misdemeanor unless they could connect them to another crime. But according to the district attorney, Alvin Bragg, they didn't have to disclose what that crime was. And
Huh.
then they gave the jury instructions that they didn't have to unanimously agree on what the crime was,
Huh.
which is
It's yeah, it's
really
like
fucking weird. Like,
it just kind of seems like they were trying to like create like charges so they could 14th Amendment him. And I kept being like the 14th Amendment thing's never gonna work. And I'm like, there's a bunch of people I talked to who were like,
well,
no, it's totally gonna work. I'm like, it's
they
not gonna
tried
work.
they tried in Colorado and Maine and it didn't work because it was found
No,
to
it
be
didn't work.
unconstitutional. Sander, that case, the one that you're referencing, is was a civil case. But I mean, same difference, yeah. I
The
mean,
civil case isn't gonna stop him from running for president. I mean,
well, technically neither
no
is a
case will
felony.
stop you because I was gonna say criminals can run for president.
Well, and
That was the kind of
Trump also,
but
I think, holds the record for having the most iconic photographs in a campaign season. Because I
I
think
mean
now he's got,
that is
yeah.
indisputable, yeah.
Because I think now he's got like three. He's got the mug shot. He's got the fist pump after he was shot, and
he it's okay. I think we talked about this. I don't want to be like once again, I when people are like, it looks, I get it. It's all I can say is when people are like, it looks fake, I get it, I get it. I don't think it is. I want to make that clear. But like, man, that photo, you couldn't have
oh,
planned that.
the best.
I mean, you
And I
could
don't.
have, but it would have required a lot of work.
And I don't mean to laugh because and this is honestly how I know it wasn't fake is because people died or a
People
person
died.
died.
Yeah, that's my thing.
A person died. Well, if you count the shooter, two people died, and then two people are still in the hospital. But I believe last I heard they were on the road to recovery, so that's fantastic
Well, that's
news.
good.
But the best meme I saw was say what you will about WWE, but they taught Donald Trump to find the hard cam.
That's funny.
And actually, like, it's not so much funny as it is just kind of incredible. Is when you see the video, because I saw this, the wide shot. You see the photographer that took that photo, everybody else ducks down, and this motherfucker just beelines for the stage
Yeah.
because he knew what
He's
was
like, I'm
up.
about to be a millionaire.
Exactly. Honestly, that's worth a gunshot wound. Not gonna lie.
I mean, look, yeah,
Not a
it's
fatal
one of
one,
those
but
ones that like
it's
people were.
it's worth taking a non-fatal bullet for.
I saw someone say the picture is the story, and I was like, yeah,
The
that is the
fuck it's
absolute
not.
truth. Yeah, that is the absolute truth. If nothing else, um,
I mean, even the
um,
flag was there. Like, come on.
even the flag was there. Yeah, I think my prediction for this is all out of whack because it's all gonna. My thing was Donald Trump was gonna win. It was gonna be by slim victory, and Joe Biden was. Okay, that's what I was gonna say. My conspiracy theory is, and I maintain this, that somebody whispered to Joe Biden that he had no chance of losing. That's they had something on Donald Trump that was like irrefutable. This is the thing that's gonna take him down. He cannot win in 2024. And the Democratic Party by like so you say the debate, I think well before that, when those court cases didn't stick, they were like, shit, it's not as slam dunk as we thought. We need to have a backup. And I don't know. My theory is they got a backup already.
See, I don't think so. I think they put all their eggs in the wrong baskets, and now it's time to pay the piper. And I'll be honest, I don't, barring a dark horse candidate that we don't know yet, and just a one in a million shot. They've dug their hole too deep, and they can't get out of it.
I do agree. I'm like I clearly I don't think they expected Trump to get out of the primaries. Like that's I keep going back to that, but I'm like I think they thought it was going to be Biden versus Newsom,
They were
and they were like
they were hoping and praying that Trump would get knocked out in the primaries because people would find him too distasteful.
absolutely. Like let's again another hypothetical. Let's say it is Biden versus Gavin Newsom. It's like who like, I just don't think Gavin Newsom has federal appeal.
You
Not
mean
Gavin
Biden versus DeSantis?
DeSantis, Ron DeSantis, not Newsom.
See,
What am I
see,
talking?
I disagree honestly
I'm,
because I think DeSantis would have mopped the floor with Joe Biden from a policy perspective. Now, what would have been difficult for him, which I don't think would have been as big of a factor against Biden because Biden can't talk, is again he doesn't have any oomph to him, but he's clearly learning it now, too late.
yeah,
Because his RNC speech, I was like, where was that in the primary?
but I would argue that a lot of his more conservative policies, when you get to like the middle of the country, I just don't think they're palatable to those
But
guys.
what policy would you see? This, and I'm not faulting you for this, but just happens all the time. Is people will say things like that, but like, what's one of those policies that you would deem to
Well,
be
I
unreasonable?
know now when I'm not talking about build content, I'm talking about like media perception in terms of
Sure,
trying to win an election. So
but
like
like,
the don't gay the book bans the don't
but here's
say
the thing.
gay bill
But
and
here's the thing, though. That narrative was completely false and was completely debunked,
sure, absolutely. But I
and it
think
still
like
passed.
sure, true and sure enough. But I think like I made video about how the death of nuance. I think people just see him as the face of that, and that's all they would see federally when it comes time for. And I think
Sure,
Joe Biden's like milk toast liberal ideas would be help him beat DeSantis. I don't
but
think DeSantis has the charisma of a Trump to carry him through.
no, no, oh no, certainly not. But he could learn sufficiently. He's never going to be on Trump's level. But here's the thing: so in a debate, like this is how you clean up that mess. Because I totally understand and agree with what you're saying. But Joe, and this is where Joe Biden got torn apart in that debate. Other than his senility, is the fact that like okay, he brought up uh Trump, the whole like good people on both sides thing. All Trump said was like, "That's been debunked. Watch the video."
True,
And
true.
so,
I mean,
and
yeah, but
DeSantis didn't.
I think with DeSantis, I don't think he has like Trump, I will say he has the charisma to make his worst ideas feel palatable,
Sure,
and
sure, sure.
I think that's what's winning him this election. I think there's
100%.
that test of it's like if you just put Trump's words on paper and didn't tell somebody that they were Donald Trump's words and had them read them, they are incomprehensible. So
Well,
I'm like that's
actually, the opposite seems to be the case because they've done a couple. And again, take this with a grain of salt because they're sampled. But there, I've seen a ton of content creators tell people like take Trump quotes and say that they were Joe Biden, and like Democrat voters are like, yeah, I would agree with that. And then
I
it hits
think
them
it
with the fact that it's
depends.
Trump. Yeah, obviously they're selected.
Yeah,
Sure.
like with the I find when you take like big like when it's like small ones, it's not so bad. But if you take like a big long speech and
Well,
you read
yeah.
it, you're like, yeah,
Yeah, but nobody
it's hard to
nobody
understand.
nobody believes that Joe Biden speaks for that long. Like
Oh no 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 no
nobody
no no.
believes that Joe Biden could talk for 90 minutes straight.
I am even minded, so I'm like as much as I'm like same thing with Joe Biden. If you were to read but Joe Biden through that same test, he'd also fail. Um, so that yeah that's where I'm like that's the stuff that gets me with Trump is
Um
just the incoherence.
as is very common with our conversations, we've been going for a while now. So I think the people
Oh yeah,
might
I
be
haven't
getting
even been
sick.
looking at.
Yeah,
Fair
we
enough.
a little over 2.5 hours. But before we end it, which I will leave you guys with the promotional video for One Weekend at Horrorland. But before we sign off, is there any other Democratic possibilities you could think of? Because I'm racking my brain and I just
Oh no. But before we end it, I have to do two things because I know that this was sponsored by our show, which I'm very grateful for.
yes, you've got to
But I
let
do have
them
to do
know.
I have to I have to shout another one of our consistent sponsors and the thing that you sent me, and I'm hoping, but if this gets to go on that, but I received this bad boy and trophysmack.com. I know I don't know no, we're not really sponsored today by them, but good quality, man. Good quality. I said it'll look great on my wall, and I mentioned the belt. The belt would also yeah,
Yeah,
the belt would also look great on my wall.
we got to
And
find a way to hang this thing because it's honest, it's heavier than I thought it was going to be.
I had an OBS glitch, and I fully intended to post this. I wasn't obviously expecting to be on here today. Oh yeah, also we're coming. I know you said Goosebumps Crew's got a good chance for podcast of the year, but we're coming for it, just so you know. Um, but I was gonna post it, but I had an OBS glitch and I lost all my video footage. But we cut a promo because we talked about Harry Potter, where I maintain that those are badly written books, and you disagree with me. So I've called you out in a professional wrestling style promo,
Oh, I
in
want
a
to see this
debate.
so bad.
And I'm gonna once I have access to my footage, I'm gonna cut it out. I'm gonna post it. But I've challenged you to a Jordan says to the death, but I've challenged you to a friendly the debate where we are going to try where I would like to attempt to convince you that they are badly written, and you are welcome to convince me that they are well written. And the only question is it going to be in my town or yours?
I don't know. We can do it in your town.
Because Jordan says we can do it in our town, and he can moderate.
Actually, you know what? Let me get back to you on that. It might have to be in my town just because of my content needs. I'm not sure going forward, but we'll be in touch. We'll make it happen. But issue your
No, fair
challenge, and
enough.
I will issue an
But
appropriate response.
yes, that's my challenge. So yeah, you can respond in due time to that. But yeah, I figured since I was here, I'm like, you know what? Let's do this live. But yeah, I wanted to mention those two things.
Yeah, usually the challenge is thrown out first, but
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I like it.
I lost my video. Like I normally what I do is I record my our the stream while we stream it, so I don't have to get it from YouTube because I YouTube converters fucking suck, and downloading it from YouTube directly takes like multiple days, and I like to have it. Yeah, and I went to go grab it, and it was completely just me, my shoulder frozen. I was very upset.
Very upsetting.
These just but the stream was good. I didn't we didn't lose the episode, so that was good.
That's
But it was
good.
just frustrating.
That's
Yeah.
very good. So yes, I'm glad you brought that up. And then be on the lookout in September for the Final Frontier, our podcast that's
I'm so
coming.
excited.
I'm
I'm
stoked,
so
which
excited to
actually
get started on that.
it's actually we're gonna record our first episode on Wednesday, but it's not gonna be premiering until Star Trek Day this September. So
Yes. Speaking of that, I do have, but those are gonna be off-air questions before I let you go for the day. But I do have questions for you once we're off air about
okay.
that because you had mentioned doesn't matter. Anyway,
Anyway, yeah, I can't really think. I mean, nobody that's viable. I mean, you could just name drop a bunch of Democrats, and I can probably tell you
I
why they
just
wouldn't
don't
win.
think there's.
Starting with who are they?
I just think the Democrats just they don't know how to win. That's the thing is Republicans say what you will, disagree with them. They know how to they play to win. I've seen a lot of people say that. And it's like if they wanted to win, they needed to bench Joe Biden earlier and like make it make
100%.
it a legacy thing. Like really, if it's gonna be Kamala, really like lean into the like it's Joe Biden, he's passing the torch, and he's like an old elderly fatherly figure. He's passing the torch to his protege, and do that. It's too late. You can't do that now.
Thank you, Sandor. I'm glad you subscribed. I look forward to more of your comments
Yeah, he was a
because you
great
are
contributor.
because you are entertaining as hell. I'm going to assume sir, but if it's madam, correct me and I apologize. But I'm assuming sir, based on your sense of humor. Is that sexist? A little bit, but is it wrong?
I like to be proven wrong. I like my assumptions to be proven wrong.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
fine.
I found a lot of times things that are labeled as offensive today, like don't get me wrong, things are legitimately offensive, but like things that are often labeled offensive today are only offensive because they're kind of true and it makes people mad.
I'm of a similar way. And look, I think I'm a firm believer that you can put a thing in its time and be like, it's funny for its time, and it still makes me laugh. But like, yeah, I recognize you're allowed to recognize that things are bad, and that's what makes them funny.
Sure. And I will just say this, my girlfriend doesn't ever not let me drive.
Yeah, fair enough. I knew who that was going for. It took me a second. I was like, I knew who that was going for.
I'm just saying, I'm not implying anything by that. It's just an observation.
It's a perfect. I'm just asking questions.
It's a
That's what
scientific
I'm saying.
observation. I wore a lab coat and everything.
Right? Right. We tested it against other assholes. That's what I'm saying, yeah.
They all laughed, so it must be true.
It must be true.
Yeah, God, I can't think of any other. I mean,
I'm I
I've heard rumors that they would trot out Hillary Clinton again, but that's
No, there's no way. There's no
well,
way.
I haven't even heard rumors. I've heard people have said it, and I'm just like, if she couldn't win in 2016, she ain't winning now when we have
She
restrained Donald Trump. Because believe it or
she
not, this
what
is restrained Donald Trump.
they had her. There was a speech, there was an interview she did where she made some jibe at either how Gen Z were too young and stupid to understand. It was either Gen Z or millennials, how they were too young and stupid to understand.
I think it
And
was
I'm
Gen
like, I
Z.
was like,
But
you have
yeah,
to
I mean
think,
that's Hillary Clinton 101. Insult the voter base and then ask for their vote. You're supposed to
yeah,
do it in the
Pokemon.
opposite order.
I mean, for me, it was Pokemon. Look, Hillary Clinton, for me, it's two things for Hillary Clinton. It was Pokemon go to the polls. She should be ashamed of that.
Oh,
She should be
I
ashamed
forgot
of
about that.
that. And number two, I never believed in the lizard person conspiracy until I saw Hillary Clinton speak. Like that was like my like,
You
I
know what they should have done,
she didn't
honestly?
speak like a human.
Yeah.
I
You know what they should have done,
saw the eyes
honestly?
flick.
They should have just gotten in cahoots with the developers of Pokemon Go and been like, put super rare Pokemon at polling places.
They should have just included a mini game where you could throw Pokeballs at Hillary Clinton, and she went, "Ow, stop it! Ow, ow,
I
ow!"
I would have showed up for that. Still would have
I
voted
I
for not
I
Hillary
can't.
Clinton.
I gotta say, I would have downloaded it, and then I wouldn't have voted for either of them because I'm Canadian.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I almost said, and I would have still voted for Trump, but I didn't vote for Trump in 2016, so that would have been a foolish thing to say.
I will say I appreciate you listening to my opinions because the last time I tried to contribute to America to discourse about American politics, I got told to shut the fuck up. So like,
Yeah, a couple of times, and I want to be a bastion of free thinking for people all around the world because even though I may not agree with set of political opinion, generally speaking, it's valid and worth hearing. There are just dumbasses out there, but if you're gonna extend the right and courtesy for someone to be heard, it's got to extend to everybody. So, like, if you're dead wrong, I'll tell you how you're dead wrong, but I will do it
yeah.
respectfully and without insulting you. Yeah, dude, I was ashamed of my countrymen for that one because all you did was ask a question.
Yeah, I mean, my thing with that was I was like, I just kind of posited like, is it what you're saying moderately hypocritical? And like, yeah, man, they jumped down my throat so hard. It was incredible. I've never experienced such a thing. It was absurd. And I'm like, and then they wonder why people get pushed right. I'm pretty immovable, so it doesn't push me right, but they wonder why it does. Because
Well,
like by and
when
large, it's like I've discovered. Oh man, this is one of those. Maybe I shouldn't say this on the internet, but fuck it. Allyship is conditional. Like it's allyship. You're allowed to be an ally so long as it's on their terms and how they want it. And if you don't ally exactly the way that they want you to, they get mad at you. Or if you
Yeah.
don't do it quick enough, or if you like
Or my favorite, which I've experienced, is like, hey, I totally get like you guys just want to be you, and that's great, but maybe you're taking it a little too far in this particular area, and instead of being like, really, what makes you say that? I would like to hear your perspective on that. But, fuck you, you stupid fucking bigot.
my thing is like, okay, um, Jordan recently watched and I recently watched Team America World Police. And the big thesis of that movie is who gives a fuck what celebrities have to think about the Middle East? Like who gives a rat's ass of a shit? Yeah, like that's the thesis of that movie, and that was the thesis of Matt and Trey like a lot back then. And so it's just so ironic to me that people are like getting pissed off at Dylan Mulvaney for not having an opinion on the Middle East. I'm like, do you think maybe that like
It's a little
that
outside the
they
purview of Dylan Mulvaney.
yeah, exactly. That Dylan Mulvaney maybe doesn't want to get yelled at for having the wrong opinion because nothing seems to make like if they were to say something, Dylan Mulvaney were to say something, you just be like too little, too late, and you get mad at them. You know what I mean? Like, who cares what they have to? That's my thing. Like that movie, like who cares what Sean Penn has to think about what's happening? And now it's like we absolutely care what Sean Penn thinks about what's happening in that. And I just that irony and that shift, that
Yeah.
ironic shift, is wild to me. I'm like, we used to make fun of celebrities for caring about that stuff. What happened?
Well, the celebrities became the mainstream opinion. That's what happened, and now they're valuable.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah. No, yeah, now it's like you want Taylor Swift. We're worried that Taylor Swift might support the Democrats. And I'm like, oh man, shit like that makes me nauseous. I'm like,
Oh, I thought of someone who honestly I think would beat Donald Trump. I don't know that he would run as a Democrat now, but if he did, I think he'd beat Donald Trump.
are you gonna say The Rock?
I'm gonna say The Rock.
Rock joined as a Republican.
See,
Yeah, he
that's what
already
I
like
thought. That's what I thought.
yeah. He
That's what I'm
exhibited
saying.
regret over endorsing Biden. And yeah, I don't think he out and out said that he'd gone full bore conservative, but like I
No,
mean,
but
I
I
mean the
I
thing
I I bet he's a Republican though. Maybe not
he's
conservative Republican, but
yeah, well, he was one of those select. It's hard, but when it comes to sincerity, with when it comes to like conservative views, it's hard for me to take certain celebrities seriously with it because like that sort of happened on the heels of like him and Oprah getting in trouble over Maui. So it's like it's hard to tell if he's being genuine with his beliefs or if he's just like, yeah, the liberals are mad at me right now, so fuck it.
I mean, maybe though, maybe. I will say this though, regardless of what political party he ran under, those debates would be useless.
I
I mean,
mean,
think about The
I
Rock. The Rock
I
getting up
still
there.
like The
I mean, like,
Rock.
I could just see he could be up there with any name, and they'd fall for it too, because I guarantee they haven't watched his WWF promos. Be up there and be like, and my opponent, sorry, what's your name again? It doesn't matter what your name is.
Yeah, yeah,
It would be
yeah.
beautiful. And my
What's
favorite,
your
my
position? What's your foreign position? Position on foreign policy? It
my
doesn't
foreign.
matter what your.
No, I can see this is like my opinion on foreign policy when it comes to the Kingdom of Iran is I'll take this size 15 boot, turn that some bitch sideways, and stick it straight up Romani's candy ass.
Although, are you saying like the war with Ukraine wouldn't end immediately if he just gave the people's elbow to Vladimir Putin?
It would end immediately.
Just run in. It's like, oh my God, it's the people's elbow.
If you could get Jerry the King Lawler to do the commentary,
I will say, okay, to go back to my Harry Potter debate challenge real quick. The analogy I used it was going to be the podcast equivalent of that of Mankind versus Undertaker, and I hadn't determined who was the one who was going to be thrown off the cage yet.
I guess that depends, honestly. It depends on how the debate goes. We'll see. You'll
That's
have to tune in to
because
find out.
Jordan, he's like, I felt the need to escalate immediately, and I was like, fair enough, yeah. I've
I will
trained you well, sir. I've trained you well.
I will say this in closing before I send you all to the Weekend at Horrorland promo video. My favorite rock meme ever, and it's the most recent one. It was actually a promo he did against Cody Rhodes, which I didn't know. I just thought it was a funny meme. He points off the street, goes, off is the direction you can fuck.
That one's good. Real quick to Weekend at Horrorland. Can I just say, as much as I enjoy the shit out of promoting that, and I was super excited, but Cal Dodd, man, like that's like just to promote it one extra time. Like we're doing a Deadpool special for next week for our show to promote our show one last time. So we're gonna watch a bunch of X-Men shit, and I'm gonna watch X-Men '97. I'm gonna try to get the original animated series in there, and like as for as much as people are like Hugh Jackman Wolverine, like he's the Wolverine, so it's just super surreal to be able to be like to promote an event that he's attached to, and I think that's just so cool.
Oh, don't think for a second I'm not going to get him or ask him very nicely to record promos for our podcast in Wolverine's voice. It's going to happen.
I mean, if you weren't, I was gonna. I'll pay him to do it. I don't even care. I'll give you money,
Oh yeah,
sir.
I'll pay him. But the thing is, he's such a cool dude. He'll probably just do it for free.
It's just like I'm never like 6 degrees of separation of like knowing a person who's famous. It's just so fucking rad. It's weird because like yeah, it all started from like a mutual love of a nerdy thing. It's just wild. Anyway, support One Weekend at Horrorland. That's my
Yes,
schmaltzy way of saying that.
there's still time to support the Kickstarter. It's a little down there, but with your help, we can make it. We can. All we need is all those goosebumps and horror and 90s fan guys. You get to meet Cal Dodd if you go to
I mean,
this event.
that's so sweet. We support Spur of the Moment podcast. We've supported it. We have gotten behind this. Like we're excited to support this.
But anyway, without further ado, here it is.
Hey there, Goosebumps fans. Are you ready for the ultimate horror-filled adventure? Well, listen up, because I got some exciting news for you. As a cover artist for the Goosebumps franchise, I've seen firsthand how this amazing series has captured the hearts of readers for years. And now it's time to bring our spooky world to life like never before. Introducing One Weekend at Horrorland, the biggest Goosebumps convention ever. But here's the catch, we need your help to make it happen. That's right, we're calling on all you diehard Goosebumps fans to join us on our Kickstarter campaign and help donate towards this incredible event. With your donations, we'll transform One Weekend at Horrorland into a mesmerizing celebration of all things Goosebumps. You'll have a chance to meet some of your favorite authors and artists, dive into some thrilling interactive experiences, and even get your hands on some limited edition Goosebumps merchandise. Trust me, it's going to be epic. Don't miss out on this exciting opportunity to become a part of the Goosebumps family. So head over to our Kickstarter page and let's make One Weekend at Horrorland a reality. Save the date and let's make this convention a sleeves-turning success. Thanks.